stand for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone, for coming. It is a packed house for tonight, and we have a full agenda. So, with that, it may be somewhat of a longer night. We'll begin off by starting with item 3.01, which is the Norwood High School course of study.
So thank you for having us. So we wanted to explain a little bit about our program or course of study booklet that you will be adopting, hopefully, at the next meeting. And there have been some changes going on in the high school. And so I will, in just a moment, pass out some of our course selection sheets that students have been given to reflect what course offerings we are planning on having at the high school. And then for those that are familiar with our program of studies, we also have an amended packet to give you that highlights some of the changes that we are suggesting. But before we go there, we wanted to kind of give you an overview, and Mr. Robinson's here to help you understand some of the proposed changes that we are going to give you.
Yes, so my name is Tom Robinson, assistant principal at the high school, for those of you who don't know me. So the goal for these changes, of course, of study and some things we're going to go over in this PowerPoint, is to increase achievement. That's our ultimate goal moving forward. When we look at these things, the state is constantly changing high school graduation requirements, and we are trying to kind of get ahead of the curve and be out there, so we are opening up as many pathways for graduation as possible. The state offers multiple pathways. The most typical one is to earn your graduation points through state testing, along with your graduation credits. For our students who are not able to do that, there's other pathways, and we're going to kind of go through those, and we want to increase our options for that, which will in turn increase our graduation. But just to show this quick page, this is going to be the requirements for our current freshmen, so the graduates of 2023. So they will have to earn these credits, a minimum, so this adds up to 20, and then along with those credits, they will have to choose an option. They'll have to have a passing score for Algebra 1 and English 2 tests, and then along with that, if you do not test well enough, if you cannot pass, you have to choose one of these three options.
Two, right?
Yeah. Correct, yeah. So our first option is to demonstrate focus on a career-focused activity. So for these, they offer different industry credentials that you can take, which we want to start offering. So this could be in service, like hotel service, construction. It's just some different career avenues that students aren't taking college pathways. Yeah.
So would these align with the SEALs that they've adopted? Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. So it all kind of matches up. For every industry credential, you can earn a SEAL.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this would apply with things that the Great Oaks program is currently doing with their SEAL program as well.
Right. So the Great Oaks offers industry credentials with their programs. They kind of go hand in hand. But we can do it for our students too, who are not really eligible to go, because the Oaks is getting very competitive, and some of our students, not all of them, are able to attend.
I'm on the Oaks board,
Okay.
so I know that our enrollment is pretty low for Norwood students.
Okay.
And we want Norwood students to be able to take advantage of those classes and coursework, especially with the SEAL opportunities that are going to be offered as graduation credentials.
We try to, I mean, there's no doubt, we try to funnel as many students to the Oaks as possible. A lot of it is credits. So getting them to be credit ready, and when in that sophomore year, sometimes they aren't.
Some of them are also students with IEPs that can't go, that wouldn't receive those same level of support at the Oaks. So they have to stay here.
Some of that work with IEP students, depending on the field, is changing with some of the curriculum that we've been working on recently.
Yeah.
We also have the opportunity maybe to look at or reopen the discussion for satellite option,
Okay.
especially with the new requirements for graduation. I would love to bring in someone from our satellite program to discuss maybe looking at that in the future, if the board would be willing to at least listen to that opportunity.
Yeah, like we said, we are as many pathways as we can open up. It is the more the better. So, along with that, there's a pre-apprenticeship, which is something the state is offering, along with a work-study program. And that's really what we're going to talk about, how we can kind of connect through that work-study area. So the other option here is to enlist in the military or to complete college coursework. And a lot of our students, when we think of who we're creating these work-study and pre-apprenticeship programs for, it's not really our college coursework students. So as we look at our PowerPoint here, we kind of tier our students off. So when we think of it, it's really in 3 tiers. So our top tier is our tier 1 students. That's who we're thinking on a college trajectory. We want to increase CCP opportunities for them. We want to increase ACT proficiency. So we're adding ACT prep classes. Other juniors will be selected to take the class based on their practice ACT score. And then we also want to increase the honor diploma for students. So that all begins with career planning once they're in 8th grade. We want to make sure they have a solid foundation plan, what kind of path they're going to have. So 8th grade, 9th grade, we have a good idea whether this student is a college student or if this student is a Great Oak student or even work-study pre-apprentice student. We just want to make sure they have an idea and they have goals set to when we get to the end of their senior year, they're just out there. Go ahead.
Are you making sure that students are aware that they can do both?
Yes.
Because we do
Definitely.
have ACT coursework for students, or not, excuse me, ACT, but AP
Right.
coursework for students who want to pursue, maybe they want to graduate and already have some work experience under their belt to then pursue a business degree.
Yep.
So make sure that that's a viable option to combine the two.
Yes. Yeah. We like I said, there's no doubt we push the oak. So we want students to have that option to get those skills and then further that with college education. So that's something we stress a lot. So as we move to the idea of, and really why this presentation is here, is our Tier 2 and Tier 3 students. So we want to first move to a half-credit system. So this will increase flexibility throughout the year for us. We moved to 4 of 6 last year. You had to pass 4 of 6 quarters or grade points to pass a class. Moving to the half-credit system, if they don't do so well in the first semester, say they fail all 3 grade points, they are not done for the year. This allows them to continue to have an opportunity to earn a credit or half credit the second semester. Currently, we're in a situation where we have students who have failed first quarter, second quarter, and they're fine, their exam, and they're done for the year. So we're working on different things with different avenues for them to keep working throughout the year. But by moving to the half credit system, that'll give us more flexibility for that. And it'll be able to help motivate those kids. Our hope is that it will also decrease the need for summer school, or not decrease the need, but the total hours the students would be there, because they won't have to take an entire course. If they pass half credit and maybe fail the other one, then we can set it up to where they will only take half the course in the summer. Does that make sense?
So whole credits versus half credit. Is this a district policy or is this an ODE? Like who sets the requirements for half credit versus whole? Like why are we on the whole credit system now?
I would say it's something that schools begin on whole credit, 1 credit for each class for the year.
Yeah.
But more and more schools are around us, like CPS is half credit system. More schools are moving to the half credit system because it gives schools and students more flexibility and more opportunity.
Most districts are on a half-credit system because when you, especially with mobility,
Right.
you transfer in the middle of the year.
And that's
We take credits away from children because we can't put the credits in the system.
Yeah.
So we need to be on a half-credit, just like colleges and universities. You should get a half of your credit. Right now, in Dazzle, the course is a year long, so if you come in with half a credit, there's no way to put that in and give you credit. So we really need to be on semester.
So the half credit versus whole credit, this is a local district policy decision?
It is a
Right.
policy decision
Yes.
that,
I wouldn't say it's policy, however, it was programmed into your software in Daisy. It was
Yes.
programmed in, who knows how many years ago, is a full year credit. Nobody really knows, but it is problematic. You need
And
to
that's
give
not
the
something
child
we
a
can-
half a semester. I mean, everyone's on a semester credit. And when you leave with
nothing.
nothing, and you've been in school for half a year. So it's just, I don't even know how this
And that wasn't.
Well, I
has
mean-
existed this
addressed
long.
with
I mean,
that.
it's just, it needs to be changed because we're cheating children. You're leaving with less credits than you come with, and you're not getting credit for the half a year you're here,
Done it
and it's
before.
just quite odd.
But why didn't we address that with Dazzle when students would come in?
I'm addressing it now. As soon as I found out, I went, eek, I think we need this.
Right.
Everyone should get half a credit. If you're there half a year, you get half a credit. If you come in with half a credit, I mean, it's just the way to do it.
Or if
I
a
don't,
student's out
we
sick.
can't explain it. None of us were here. All I know is somehow it got put in a computer in Dazzle as a year-long credit with, but they have semester classes at the high school.
So
it's
we do have
quite odd.
semester classes that they are enrolled
Put
in.
in.
And when that class is over in December, January, whatever the date is, they are issued a credit because it's only offered in a semester amount of time. I think the theory was, well, you're taking an English class. It is a year-long curriculum, course of study. Here we are. This is what you need to do to earn a full credit. I understand that, but like she explained,
In a world
we-
where children are coming and going on
Yes.
a monthly basis, you do children a great disservice.
correct.
Because no one's getting any credits. And I don't know what you do if I transferred in this time of year, I have
Right.
no credits. I could come to Norwood High School with 5.5 credits and leave with 5. I mean, leave with less credits because you'll take off my half credit because you have no way to record it. It's like, eek.
So
I don't know how that's even legal, so it's just, we're cleaning it up.
I understand that, but I have so many other questions.
It just happens, I mean, that's normal, half a sem, I mean, you just 0.5.
So-
Full credit.
So because we're looking at implementing the new course study at our meeting next week, and this would be a part of the change for that course study, correct? So moving to this half credit system. Is it possible for us
year as the ODE changes graduation requirements. Every year that ODE has changed the graduation requirements, so we're trying to stay on the same lines now. But the biggest thing is implement blended learning, and blended learning is key because basically the definition of blended learning is a contract that the student has with the school and district that is the best basically pathway for them to attend school. It can look like work study, pre-apprenticeship programs, your work keys, which is work credentials like we discussed, and then web exams. So the goal for all these is to increase graduation rate, increase attendance rate, and to increase their job readiness skills, which are three things that the high school is struggling. So we'll go through this, but we feel like this will really boost those numbers as we move forward through the next few years. So work-based learning, just looking at some of the schools around the city. I've toured Goshen. I met with Goshen's administrator who handles their work study programs. They're currently at a 95.5 graduation rate, or this was 17-18, 4-year graduation rate. Sycamore, they're not the same size. It's a little different than us. They have a 94.9 4-year graduation rate. St. Bernard is very similar to us. They were at 89.5. Winton Woods, 90.2, and Deer Park, very similar to us, 93.8. Deer Park and Goshen specifically, they are at 55% free and reduced lunch. So very similar to the type of students we have here.
How many deferred students in those two districts?
Deferred, I don't have that number. Yeah, I'm not sure on that number.
I mean, because that's what drives down our graduation rate number.
Right. Yeah, because
That's one
so
component,
in 2018 our graduation rate was 83.4. So just looking at these schools are just giving more options, and that's what we want to continue to focus on, giving the options that the state allows. What is a work study program? Blended learning work study, not only a way to expand the path toward graduation, but also a means to individualize student learning. Some different models we can use is work study or career-based intervention, which would include in-house Apex students currently. Apex credits, this could be sophomores, juniors to seniors, so typically grades 10 to 12, and this would allow them to get caught up on Apex and credit recovery, because again, a lot of these students are credit deficient. And then they will be working with an employer around the area. They can contract it themselves, or we can set it up through them. But if they work 15 hours a week is their minimum they have to work, then they would earn the credits for their electives.
Would we have to institute some sort of MOU with each individual employer? How would that work? How would the relationship work with us and the employer?
The relationship, it's really not a contract with the school. A lot of the students who are doing this, they can go out and get the jobs themselves. So it's something that they're doing on their own. The main relationship is that we know that they're working. Just as long as they show their pay stubs to give proof of their hours and they're working, that's blended learning work study.
Right, but we're also providing them with a half credit for each FEL that they're working. So there is a relationship
Right.
there.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's a relationship that needs to be defined.
Right, and we can work on that. And so we can have a formal contract. We can have that you're working with Norwood City Schools. But the main thing is that they're receiving, it's basically totals at 1.5 credits for that schedule, because it's 3 classes. Because the other time of day, they're here.
Right.
So,
My fear is as a kid goes out and gets a job with an employer and it's either an employer who really doesn't care,
Mhm.
or the kid ends up getting fired or ends up not going to the job, but will still end up.
And that was, so this was some of my questions. So, because I toured Goshen, Goshen's been doing this for about 10 years. So there's our teacher who would handle this. Currently, it's our Success Academy instructor. So while they're there, he would have time throughout his day to follow up. The instructor at Goshen told me he meets with the managers or owners of the businesses, usually face-to-face every 2 weeks. Because I talk to him on the phone once a week, have face-to-face meetings at least 2 weeks. So he is aware. He goes, students lose their jobs. That happens. Do they kick them out of the program right away? No, not usually. If it's a repeat offender, student obviously can't keep their job, they're not taking it serious, then yeah, maybe this program isn't the right fit. But for the most part, he said if they lose their job, they give them a little time to get another one, and if they keep it, they move on, and the program rolls itself. So I'm sure we would use some type of contract to show that the business is legit and show that, like, it can't be a family member. You can't be working for your dad's landscaping company. It would need to be something legit where we know they're working, where they know they have pay stubs. Because we need to see their pay stubs to show the hours they worked. So,
Is there an established checks and balances system that these companies and schools use?
yes.
Like, they are learning, how to run cash registers, how to handle books,
Right.
how to work with scheduling.
Right.
They are learning interpersonal relationships. Like, what milestones are we expecting from these kids, and how do we evaluate them to make sure that it's not just, okay, hey, you're going out to earn a paycheck when you're
Mhm.
15 instead of going to school.
Right, so we have forms. I can pull one up for you. What's that? The job seal, yeah. So,
It follows the same curriculum.
Yes.
Right.
As the job
That's
seal.
right.
right.
I've seen
I was
those
gonna
things.
say.
So
I've
everything's
seen
based
those.
on that. So,
Okay.
yeah, the job seal program, it gives you 15 job skills
Yes.
that they must fill out with their manager. That's part of this program because the job seal is the pathway. If they don't get the job seal,
And those are
They
pretty
haven't done
thorough.
it.
it's pointless, and it doesn't help them graduate. So the idea is that they will earn the job seal, and on top of that, they have to earn 250 hours for their service project and part of the pathway. So they'll earn the hours through the work study, and then they'll get the job seal. So yeah, as they go through, they will have to fill out an entire packet with that employer that shows goals that they had before they started. Every 40 hours, they're having to reflect, and then at the end, how they did on those 3 goals. And the goals can be skills, punctuality, customer service, general things. And then the job seal, they have to fill out a questionnaire, 15 different skills, how they performed, or how examples of how they did them, and then the manager has to sign off.
So one of the things we noticed with our grads who completed Work Seal program packets, the jobs that they would then go to apply to, if they brought that with them,
Right.
employers in the Cincinnati area are very familiar with these, and it works as a resume booster because it shows the skills they are already coming in with. They're showing skills that they can then mold, and it's showing that they have some strengths that they can then say, oh, you've already got work experience. So it helps as a resume builder.
And so our goal is as we move forward with this too, as we build it, we want to survey our students and find out at the end of the year what are their interests, so that we can kind of guide them, because there's so many different work keys and work credentials and job skills that they can have. We can kind of funnel them into something they enjoy, because a lot of these students in this tier 3, these are not motivated students. These are students who are struggling in school on a daily basis to sit through 7 bells. That's why they're credit deficient. That's why they have high behaviors. So we want to find something that interests them and then motivates them. So our goal is, if they can go out, I've surveyed some students, because currently our APEX students sit in a classroom for 6.5 hours a day. No other schools are doing that. It's 3.5 hours, and then they're in work study. And so I've surveyed to them, because they're sitting in these rooms and they're not working, they're not motivated. Even as sophomores and juniors, they are still not motivated to do APEX. But like, if I could get out of here 3.5 hours a day and work, that, like, you could just see their eyes light up. It sparks some interest. So it just opens up so many avenues for them to be motivated and get to graduation. So that's what we're hoping to do. So included in this, we would work on transition skills, the same skills that, are in the job skills. So it's a transition skills bell. We currently have this in our course of study. It's for our special ed students. We would open it up to these students too. They would have direct instruction bell. So we would have a special ed teacher and a general education teacher in both of these, because we would have AM and a PM groups. They would teach the transition skill bells to both groups. So they would both have that along with their Apex. At this time, they could work on work re-credentials. They could work on service projects, their work seals. NIMS, which is an example of a National Incident Management System. It's another example of a work credential. And then ServSafe is just another example of a work credential. So, and then during this is when our success teacher, Kevin Schulte, he would have time to work with the managers and make his contacts. So that's phase one. This is a little more in-house jobs. We wouldn't be paying students. That was something Goshen did. So we wouldn't do that. It would be volunteer hours. Because some of our students can't go. They struggle with anxiety. They struggle to be in public. So we would create in-house jobs where they could earn volunteer hours. We're doing that right now with Pam Bowers in our program. She's youth entrepreneurship. She's working with students and allowing them to earn service hours. So this is kind of how that schedule would look for them. Another part of it is, again, going back to the mental health issues, some of our students can't work. So they would be on a program where they would work on Apex. They would come in and they would continue to work. It would be the AM or the PM. They would get mental health services while they're here, and then they would head home for the day. They would not be here for a complete day. They're logging in throughout the week and while they're here, and they're still considered full-time students. We would set up Tower House services with them and try to get them as much mental health services as possible to where they can be working in the community. So we talk about goals. Goal for phase one is 21, or next school year. Phase two, where we look more pre-apprentice programs. That's when we're building it, and that's when we can really help our seniors contract with local businesses, and work in a apprentice program or with the Oaks and build on that. That's our goal for phase two. So this talks about pre-apprenticeship. It's more senior program. It's a flexible earn and learn training model that combines on-the-job training with classroom instruction. Current Apex students is who we're thinking of here for this. Credit deficiency students, both special ed and non-special ed students. And if a special ed student who may be looking to defer their diploma, this would help them, and it could decrease our deferrals, which would be huge as well. If they feel like they have a place to go, it could help. Where? This is for the work study is any business. When I was at Goshen, a girl was working at Subway. She came in, she worked her AM Apex in the classroom, and then she was off to Subway. She got the job through a friend. It was not something the school did. So it's very simple. It's a very simple way for them to earn credits and the job seals and the hours. So again, our goal, graduation rate, attendance rate, and job readiness skills. We really feel this can boost our attendance because, again, some of our students who are struggling with a full day, they're not coming. If they know they can come in for 3 to 3.5 hours, work on what they need to work on, and then work their 15 to more hours, possibly, a week, it can boost everything. And it'll keep everyone on pace for graduation, and they will have the job readiness skills that right now we're not really getting them. So that's that.
Questions,
questions on that?
piece before I hand out the lovely handouts?
I'm just shocked this wasn't done sooner. Sounds wonderful. I know my neighbor who's a kid, he's 20-something now, but when he was in high school, he would tell me, and he was one of those kids who just couldn't sit still. Him in school just didn't mix.
Yeah.
But he's smart and he's motivated to do something.
Right.
he would come in my house and tell me all the time I'm the best painter in my family. And then he'd tell me, Mr. Alice, I'm going to do an apprenticeship thing with high school. And every day, Xavier, how's this apprenticeship thing? Oh, it's going to happen, it's going to happen. And it never happened.
Yeah.
So I'm like, this sounds like what my neighbor was telling me about, and I wonder why it didn't happen then. Why is it happening now? But yay, thank you.
Several districts are talking about it right
maybe you
now,
can
and
go
Harrison is, so they're looking at the
get
same thing.
Xavier and
So we just had a conference call with
Take
Harrison.
him in.
With Harrison.
Yeah.
And Chris and I did, and Tina, and it was a great conversation.
Well, with
For
the
the
new
pre-prep
seal
program.
changes, a lot of schools are gonna be open to it.
Right.
And even though there are a few, like you said, that have already gotten it off the ground, more districts are gonna open their doors
Right.
now because of the seal
Yeah.
change. And I think finally something is happening that
The,
people are
the
recognizing
state,
the
the
need
state
for
has
an
gone
option.
kind of where we pushed college so much,
Yeah.
20 years ago, and now we're realizing that it just may not be the best fit for everyone. So push college, great. Just make sure everybody has a plan, basically, and that's what our real goal is. As freshmen in 8th grade, make sure everybody has a plan.
We're missing skilled workers.
Right. And
Or
so,
you see articles all the time that they are deficient in skilled workers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm like, we have those kind of kids in Norwood.
We do.
But they also require 5 years experience by the time they walk out the door. Well, this is
Right.
an easy way for them to, as soon as they graduate, well, I've already got 2 years of work
Right.
experience under their belt and an apprenticeship.
yeah.
It's a great tool. I'm surprised they never looked into it sooner, but.
So what I have handed you, I'm going to look at the packet that says course changes to our program of studies. You will notice several items are highlighted in yellow. That means it is a change from the prior program of studies booklet, which if anybody, I know you had a link, but I did bring a hard copy in case you had questions. And it is broken down by kind of departments and things. So for example, in the English, we are proposing what is called an English lab for 10th graders. What that means is it's an extra support bell for those students that have shown that they might struggle with some skills in reading and writing, and they need that extra support time in a class. We are going to be offering AP English Language next year. That's another AP course added to our options for students. Also a CCP English through Cincinnati State. Tim Ruoff is our English teacher that is our CCP trained English teacher. So we are going to offer that.
So, but it'll be taught here.
It is taught in-house, yes.
That's the great thing about it.
Yes. For math, we don't have any new additions to our program of studies, but we wanted you to recognize that our English lab that we are proposing is a similar thing to what we already adopted for our math program. Science, again, no new additions for next year, but we are going to continue offering our AP chemistry. So again, adding another AP option for students. Social studies, we are proposing a new speech and debate class for students to choose from. And we have already added an AP Human Geography last year. So this is the first year we'll be giving that AP Human Geography test coming up here in the spring. In physical education, they are expanding some of their options, really just changing some of the language in their course options. So there's a physical education 2, which back in the day we called team sports, kind of a more competitive type group activities, and a new physical fitness and nutrition class that's going to go back to back, hopefully, for students. Other things, which Mr. Robinson just discussed, was our work study. There's a description in there, and then we changed the language on our transition skills to include both typical and those identified needing special education services. So that is what that is. Included in the packet is descriptions of each of those changes or new additions. As you go through those, the second packet are the course selection sheets that are being given to students. So you can kind of see how courses are given. Our guidance department is currently holding class meetings and individual student meetings with every student in the building to try and help guide their choice making as it occurs.
Does anybody have any questions?
I think I do have one.
Mm-hmm.
Under course description for the English 10,
Mm-hmm.
these are the exact same books that I had as requirements when I took English 10 many moons ago. And I was wondering if there's any possibility of changing that list. I know we have some amazing books that are listed there, but there's also a ton of more modern material that could be much more relevant to our students learning about their world, as well as supporting some of these very important, crucial novels to understanding where we come from as writers in history. But there are a lot of authors out there that may not be getting recognition that might be more applicable.
Chris, can you help me with curriculum book adoption or?
I know it says possible trade books, so they did list the big wigs, the heavy
Yeah,
hitters. So there's room for growth there, and teachers are all the time, especially in that department, bringing forth a new and more contemporary book. So your thoughts are well spoken because that's important as well. There are a lot of new novels that can be considered and might relate a little differently to kids than some of these classics that we enjoyed.
Is there any way to get a list of some of the
So
stuff
I think they're
that's being
currently working
introduced?
on it. Nothing is come to fruition yet, but they're bringing forth some novels for consideration as well. And some of these are what are part of the regular English 10.
Yeah.
So the English Lab being a carryover, that's why they listed them again. And so they'll add additional trade books. So your point is well taken, though.
I'm just having flashbacks of homework being due right now. I'm like,
Yeah.
not yet, not yet.
3 paragraphs, that's
On the phone.
Any other things I can try and clarify for you?
Any other questions? All right, thank you very much.
Mr. President, I will say the last presenter is here, and they are an outside group, so I don't know if you want to.
Oh, so would anybody mind, because I know if we go back to our agenda, 3.05, we have a presentation from an outside person. Would anybody have any objection into amending the agenda and moving them up so that they can present now in the lead?
No objection.
No objection?
All of our inside presenters further back.
Sorry.
I wrote take off.
Thank you.
Thank you guys.
Yeah, it's just the PLK presentation.
Julie, do you need me to move?
Does he need the laptop or the screen?
Yeah, you don't need to screen. He passes it.
Okay.
So, here's the screen. Everybody remember Nick Sladen-Felter?
Nick, good to see you again. Good to see you guys.
And I'm Mark Morrison, also the PFS.
Sure.
Sorry, man. This, just in case. Is that?
All right, so Nick, as you're getting that booted up, I
Yep.
know since the last time that you've been here, there have been a number of changes to our structure.
Yep.
So we have Mary Ronan, who
Hello.
is our superintendent. Another new person that wasn't here last time was Debbie Cole. And then Amber was here, but then we have Sally Rayburn, and then Alice Rarica, and I believe everybody else was the same.
Fantastic. Super. Just a second here. See, can you do it?
And Nick, I still want a tour.
Okay.
Yeah, we're to
You're
do it
running
soon.
out of time.
You guys just shot a movie there, right?
Yeah.
We
Well,
did
not us
consider it.
personally, but
That building.
we hosted a movie.
Yes.
I've
That
just
was-
been waiting since the last meeting to go to the tour, and I haven't,
I'm
but I'm
excited.
still here, so I
So 3:30 tomorrow.
It'll be there 1, 11, 1, and 3:30.
Yeah.
The last couple, when they got Bird and Bell, I think at 3:30.
Oh, 3:30 is gonna be busy, so come
I-
on, come along.
what
Give
time?
us a second.
3:30, I'll be there, and Nick sounds like too. So
I'll be there.
yeah, meet in the front. That's
Yeah, so the movie thing was interesting. We're not going to cover that, but
No.
to give you a little background, I got a phone call about 3.5 weeks ago on a Friday and said, it's the Ohio Film Commission, and I'm like, first of all, I thought it was somebody from California that owed me money. It's the only reason I answered the phone call. And it turned out to be the Film Commission saying, hey, we wanted to shoot a scene at your building, could we do it? And I'm like, well, honestly, it's coming down, it's not safe, you gotta get the fire department to sign off, kind of gave me this laundry list, but I'm like, I'll be glad to show you the building. So we did, and then they spent the next week trying to figure out how they could shoot only in concrete structures, which is basically what they picked. They couldn't go in the main building, and ultimately what we agreed to was we did not get paid a lot of money at all, like nothing, less than $1,000 a day, because that's the typical pay in Ohio. So, but as part of the agreement, they agreed to shoot multiple scenes in the clock tower with Bruce Willis. So we used the fire department to get them up there. It is a very tight way to get up there. And then they provide still photographs and everything so we can use it for marketing purposes because the clock tower is to remain afterwards.
Right.
So,
and thankfully we were able to
I have a
host
different one.
some limited visitors, and one of them were a group from the school that got to come in.
Oh, I can
That was
do
neat.
Yeah, so we did that. Fortunately, I think the schools were able to get in as well, which was nice. Let's try this one real quick.
Yeah, it's
See if
over
this
at
one
Howard.
works.
Yeah, I ended up right behind him.
So, does this work? Let's try that. Let's see. Try this one in the office. But no, they were great to work with. It just was one of those things we thought would be fun to do with the building and get some of the building shot and some scenes and be able to just kind of have some documentation there. So
There we go.
cool. All right. When are you gonna see the kids? A minute. We are. Great. Cool. So what we're gonna do, again, my name's Nick Lingenfelter, and this is Mark Morrison. We both work for PLK Communities here in Cincinnati, and kind of give you a little bit of background on us for you that are new, and then some updates because we had presented to this group beforehand, but just what kind of changed and transpired since then, kind of give you an update all around on where we're at. So, PLK Communities is located in Cincinnati. We have about 243 employees as of today. So, we have about 4,800 apartments just in Cincinnati and 7,200 in two-state area. So, everything is locally owned and operated. We have no third-party investors. It's all our management team, including Mark and myself, and our primary investor is Peter Fleekamp. And all of our decisions are internal. You don't have to go somewhere else and ask for it. We don't raise any outside money whatsoever. And fortunately, our legacy portfolio is big enough to allow us to do that. So, We are long-term holders, so everything we buy with the intent to own for a long term, typically in excess of 10 years. So, to give you an idea of some newer product that we've built on the caliber of what we look to do, we are multifamily owner and operators. Everything we do leads with apartments. That's just what we do. Now, this project will be a mixed-use development, and be glad to cover that a little bit more, but it is driven by the apartments first. Retail right now does not work to lead any project, especially national retailers that are closing at a pretty rapid rate. So, another side we do have a townhome division, which I have the fortunate or unfortunate luck of helping oversee. And building houses is a very difficult thing to do right now with the different labor pools in commercial construction, and just a lot of delays. So anyway, we just kind of give you some different looks at the finishes of the product that we build to. So all of our new construction is high quality A product. We don't build anything that's not a high-rate finish. So, and then the other two projects we have coming this year, Alexander Point, which is Mark's project up in Miami Township, and then Jameson, which is coming to Madisonville, will start hopefully in the next 30 to 45 days. So that's another 151 units that we're building there. So, a little bit of background here, because it is new for everybody. We acquired the property in November of last year. We've been working on it on and off for almost 3.5 years. So we personally had it under contract 3 times before we bought it. There's a lot of negotiating back and forth with the previous owner. Prior to acquiring the site, the previous owner actually had under contract to 5 other developers besides us, who also tried to find a way to do it. And they had 15 national developers that had been through the property trying to figure out a way to save it. Because a lot of the questions we get are, why aren't you saving the building? And we'll kind of go into that a little bit more. But long and short of it was, when we were working to save the building, there was about a $23 million gap between cost and value. It's a significantly large structure. Given the environmental issues that I'll kind of dig into, they wouldn't allow us to put any residential on the first floor, which means we needed to find 150,000 square feet of tenants to somehow occupy the first floor of that building, given that it's almost 650,000 square feet under roof. So it's a pretty large structure to do. So we spent a lot of time and ultimately realized we could not move forward with the historic restoration, and we walked away last spring. Fast forward a little bit, they put a 24-hour fire watch on it, given that there had been so much theft, vandalism, stealing of copper. There was no way to heat the building, and ultimately the concern with the fire department was the sprinklers were going to blow, which they actually blew in the last 2 weeks. So we have no more sprinkler systems in the main building either. So it is a significant safety hazard. And what we ended up negotiating with the owners was, if we could convince city council to let us selectively demolish certain structures there, we would be willing to proceed with the closing. If we couldn't, we could not take on the liability as an organization. It just was not worth the risk of put our personal money into their problem. So with the tax credit issues, to give you guys an idea, we get a lot of questions on what happened to the historic tax credit. So in 2017, the government put in the Top Tax and Cut in Jobs Act, which we're all either love or hate. We're not the biggest fans, but it eliminated what was known as the 10% historic tax credit. So under historic restoration standards, you have to save every structure on a property to receive the 20% tax credit. That includes a flammable shed. That includes an old water tower building. That includes basically everything on the site had to be saved until the tax credits are earned out. What do I do with a power plant that costs $7 million to fix that nobody can really occupy? What do we do with any of these things? So the 10% credit was a credit that was there prior to this act, that we could have selectively demolished things and still received credit and be able to sell that, but unfortunately that all went away. The other thing the government did was they took the credit, so you had $1 million credit you could sell. That credit could be earned in the current year that it's purchased. So to an insurance company, that might be worth 95 cents on the dollar. Well, they changed that to a 5-year vesting period, so you get $200,000 a year. Well, that went from 95 cents on the dollar to say 70 cents on the dollar. So the money that we could get from selling those credits significantly reduced what we could put into a project. So ultimately, though, it became an unviable solution that we couldn't pursue. Just some other challenges, and I'll kind of walk through what they are. When this project starts, and this will be starting next week, you should see the construction fence going up Thursday or Friday this week. Remediation will be starting, and then we'll proceed with the selective demolition. This will be the largest asbestos remediation project in the state of Ohio going on today. I have some photos to show you because we get a lot of questions, and so I went down in the tunnels and took some. The other thing is there is no fire suppression, and there's 14 noted environmental issues in the project. So when I say noted environmental concerns, that's indoor air quality doesn't meet residential standards because there was something in the ground. There's tetrachloroethylene, which is TCE, a well-known harsh chemical that can kill fetuses. That's actually noted on the southern portion of the property. We're going to have to excavate out soil that was coming through the concrete. There's a lot of things that we have to work through to get this done, and we believe it'll take us about 12, max 18 months to get that remediation completed so we can start this next spring and summer. So, first thing I want to show you guys is, so we got this question at first, and this was probably 4 to 6 months ago. It's gotten much worse now. So like, what did we mean when we said the main building was collapsing? So the building around the clock tower was built in 1899. The clock tower itself wasn't added until 1922. Actually, Sam Hannaford didn't even design the clock tower. It was designed by his kids. Hannaford did design the original building. The thing is, that original building is an all-wood structure. Water hitting that structure for the past 5 to 7 years has caused many of the beams on the upper floors to start snapping. So it is not a safe structure in many places to be standing on. I'll actually show you another photo that kind of shows you some of the roofs. The roof beams have collapsed. If you were to actually walk on the roof, which we've seen many kids do, not a smart move. We have it all chained up. We had somebody cut my logging chains off the door recently trying to get in the property. So we've done everything we can to secure it. We check it frequently, but there's only so much we can do. The other thing we had, we talked about the power lines being cut out. This is actually in the power plant. People were stealing copper lines out of live boxes. We've had multiple issues on this. So in the last 2 months or so, we have fortunately got every bit of power turned off. Duke didn't know where it was all coming from. It took a while. But the entire property has no power to it. And the last one is a photo of one of the tunnels that we refer to. These are concrete tunnels we're actually going to have to cut access panels, because as they're remediating them, this is actually friable asbestos on the floor. So when I say friable asbestos means you have friable and non-friable. So if it's in your tile, it's hard, you can't do it. Friable asbestos is like a white powder when you crumble it. So this stuff got wet from pipes bursting. As the fire suppression burst, it actually runs through all the tunnels out. So it actually kept pushing all the problem and making it worse. So these are pretty significant remediation that has to go on this property. And this actually runs the entire site. So when the power plant was active, there was kind of progression of industry. There was originally the coal-fired power plant, then the diesel, then electric. So as you walk to the power plant, you can see the 3 different types of power that happened over time. But it all ran through these steam pump tunnels underground to all of the buildings. So, next thing I kind of brought, see if I can get the video pop up for you, is what happens 4 stories up when it rains. I can't turn this up. But this is the main building when we have rain coming down 4 stories. And you have this on a wood structure. So again, I want everybody to kind of see what we're dealing with from a damage perspective, but you're not stopping it. And it only gets worse. And unfortunately, so when we talk about the movie filmed, it was in the concrete buildings on the ends. Nobody was in here. So, but again, the most notable structure, unfortunately, is this structure. Whoops, and I hit the wrong button. I'll make it come up again. So that's what we're dealing with there. Cool. All right, so next steps, where are we at? So remediation begins next week, followed by building demolition. This will take about 6 months. They've committed to have it done by August 10th, barring no delays by the EPA. We have penalties in our contract if they are not done by August 10th. So wanted to give you guys a heads up there. We brought in 12 architects over the past 2.5 months, from local to national to international. We narrowed it down to 4. We've got 2 national architects we have as our finalists now. We're working to hopefully hire them by the end of this week. At that point, we'll get a master plan in place. We anticipate those architects will take 2 planning sessions with the community. 1, just a community session at large to hear what people think. The second one, to take their thoughts and put it on paper. And then after that, we will have a working document. Beyond 2, it just becomes people kind of nitpicking a plan that we need, but there will be 2 public sessions that everybody will be invited to kind of provide their feedback. At that point, it'll take about 90 days to get those scheduled. We will have a working document to bring back to you guys as well as the city and the rezoning, because the whole property has to be rezoned. Right now they put a PD on it as historic, so we have to redo the whole PD. And then also based on the feedback we have from everybody, we'll know if we need assistance, what does that assistance look like. But until we really know what's going there, it's all a crapshoot. So, and then we hopefully begin the construction by next summer, 2021. That's the target on that one. So I think the important thing to look at when we are approaching the site as well is what is the competitive landscape that we are dealing with as a company. So right now, Dan Nair is going to be starting the Kenner site in this summer. He'll have roughly 700 new residents to that area. And we have the Hills property. Hills is building 311 new units as well, right there across the street. So we have 1,000 new units coming in just now. We believe there's the capacity for this, but when we do this and when we come up with a plan, we have to be conscious of what we're competing against. So to give you guys an idea, all these guys have incentives from the city of Cincinnati, and we know what they are. And while we're directly across the highway, that's why we're meeting with you, because ultimately we're all going to have to work together to figure out what goes to the site. Is it office? Is it retail? What goes there? And then how do we put a package together that allows us to be successful, knowing that you've got that immediately across the street. So I just kind of like pointing that out because Hills will be starting soon, and Casto got all their government approvals in December, and they'll be Casto Nair will be starting this summer as well. So right now, this is a high-level overview of what the site currently looks like, and we've also highlighted the buildings that will remain. So you have the concrete clock tower that's roughly 20 by 20, the smokestack in the rear, the original, well, I call them the original buildings. This was actually 1907. This building actually sat up where the 4-story building was, and they moved it on horses in 1920. And they built the building in front in 1922. Architecturally, that's probably the most interior-wise significant structure on the property. It was designed by Sam Hannaford. It's got cool arch windows, just a lot we can work with, and we'll kind of walk through some of our ideas for that building. In particular, we'd love to see if we can find a way to make it a year-round farmer's market. So we think that'd be cool. What will the site look like afterwards? So once the demolition is completed, fortunately, an architect will do this for us. We can kind of see, it kind of gives you a linear pattern that allows us to build a bigger site to build with. And then we can kind of find a way to highlight the elements that are still remaining in our development. So what is our vision for the site? Of course, we want everybody's feedback. We got to start with what do we think can go there? So the first thing I think we want to be mindful of what is there, the remaining architecture, remaining history. How do we focus on that? How do we make sure we build a building that we're not losing that with new building wrapping around it? We want to be conscious there. We want it to be open to all residents of Norwood. In particular, if you look at developments at Rookwood or you look at the ones in Oakley, none of them have a square. None of them have a public park. And it's like if we're going to build a community and we want a multi-generational community, I'll get into that, we need a place that everybody can congregate to. So especially if like retail is going to be successful, the farmer's market is going to be successful, where on the site do they all congregate to, and that everybody in Norwood feels like they're welcome at the development. Yeah.
One of the big things that has been coming up consistently in debate is a community-used dog park.
Mm-hmm.
If you have places like this and you have a brewery, it needs to be dog-friendly,
Yeah.
have a dog park, things like that. Because a lot of the ones in Oakley are, and people who want to do that are taking their business outside Norwood. So we have to be mindful that not everybody has kids and they need a space that they can go to with their own fur kids, so to speak. And it needs to be a viable use for all types of family demographic, no matter what type of family you might have.
Appreciate that, yeah. And we thought about that. We figured out where do we put out the plans. We've looked at a dog park on various ideas. Unfortunately, we're not far enough down the road to really kind of go to that level yet. But again, we want to create a mixed generational project. And what I mean there is, listen, a lot of these new apartments that are getting built are not built for people, let's say in the 55 plus. I'm an empty nester. I want to rent. I want to be in my community. I want to sell my house, but I don't want to necessarily go in this community with everybody else. So we purposely are intending to build at least 100 units in an independent building within here, its own amenities, its own space for people 55 plus. This is not a nursing home. We want them an active part of the community. Everything we're doing, we want everybody to be fully engaged kind of into the middle of the property. So, and again, that gets back to food truck gatherings. We've been working with a potential brewery partner. How do we do that? How do we incorporate them into the property? But again, it's whatever brings people together is what we want. We don't want the retail of Rookwood. No, there's a knock against it. There's a need for it. But we don't want the national tenants. We believe that if we're going to do this and be successful, it's got to be different. It's got to be just more boutique in nature. So we're looking at this from a very different angle. We can't lead, again, it gets back to the whole, we can't lead with retail because national tenants aren't going to come to the site. They're going to tell me there's access issues, this, that, the other. But if we start with the residential and we create the mass concentration, or if you even look at Nair's site with 700 people going to it, we're 0.3 of a mile away. So where are those people going to go? It's actually faster for them to come to our site than it is to go to Oakley Station. So we have to kind of take all that stuff into account in designing, but at this point it's a little preliminary to say exactly what it would look like. So,
Are you looking more of like a Finley Market feel? Like
yes.
More niche, more local?
That's
and
all we want.
Not copy paste?
Correct.
Have you looked into how that site would potentially affect traffic in that area?
We have Brandon Center Carroll is our civil engineer. They're also serving as the traffic engineer for Nash property directly across the highway. So we have an idea of what their traffic counts are, how they kind of tie together, use the Robertson Bridge, what issues are there,
Yeah.
how people are going to get to it. But have we done a full-on study? No, not that. It's too preliminary. Until we really know what's going there, we then we'll know like what their capacity is. I mean,
I was just thinking, if you were thinking about, 1,000 units in that space, plus daily traffic for whatever mixed-use property that you want to be put into that space.
Would love 1,000. I don't think we're getting more than 300 to 400, but
Okay.
it is. I think reasonably, it's probably going to be in that 300 to 400 range.
Okay.
But that's kind of the angle we're looking at there. I do have a potential layout we got from somebody, but we haven't written it down, and I'd be
No,
glad to
that's
show that to you guys, but I just don't necessarily need that blasting out there yet.
No, that's fine.
But I can see if you want to see that offline, what we're thinking it could look like.
Okay.
So. Anyways, again, a boutique, very different nature, multi-generational, just very different to what you see here. Again, you don't see any of these new developments saying I want a 55 plus apartment there, but there's a major need for it. Again.
The one that we have over here,
Is that just-
we have a senior unit here in Norwood.
Is that the one down by,
Yeah.
yeah.
Just at the end of the street.
So with that, I mean, like I said, I'd be glad to take any questions you have. Just wanted to give you plenty of them and tell you where we're at, what we're thinking. And you're gonna see a lot more progress, hopefully soon. Yes, ma'am.
I feel like with Carpenter Flats, and then I've heard and there's a lot of new stuff in Madisonville that's close to your thing, and maybe you did the other one, I don't know. But I've heard comments like it's too dense, it doesn't match, and that is kind of how I feel about Carpenter Flats too. I'm like, why is that thing right on the sidewalk, and it's still dense? Yes. Are you gonna make yours more airy? Dense and right on the sidewalk.
It will be cityscape though. So when I say cityscape, I mean, yeah, you're going to want to build them as close to the sidewalk as you can. There will be green space and a public square.
Yeah,
But
lots
not
of green
necessarily,
space.
I mean, not a front yard with buffer space because then you can't really have the density that you're going to need to achieve to make it viable.
So you're not maintaining the wall facade and the roundabout that's there or increasing, that'll all be torn down as well?
Correct.
Okay.
We're starting out with a master plan vision first before the buildings come in. So we're enlisting a fairly high horsepower. Like Nick said, we're down to 2 firms. These guys don't mess around. They have a resume that it proves their worthiness to create these places because we want to create that place. We want to make sure that we're flipping the scripts instead of folks going, let's go over to that other place because they have an area that's more relaxing for dogs or community or a gather. We want to make sure that maybe they're coming toward
Are you gonna choose the architect before you do the 2 public sessions?
Yes, they'll be
They will
part
be
of
there.
that.
They'll be part of that.
Yeah, they will be.
Absolutely.
So the design that you brought to us before, I know obviously this was before you knew whether or not you could tear down property, and you didn't get to see this, but it honored the space very well by opening it up. You used cross lighting and really cool walkways and open spaces, and I'm just wondering, are they hoping, or at least when you pitch this to your architectural idea, are you going to have them say, honor the design of the original architect and kind of bring that feel back to that building? I feel like the community loves the playing card building, and obviously parts of it cannot be saved and that cannot be helped. But to keep it in mind during its build might be a crucial part to winning over the community. And I love the designs that you brought to us originally with those big cross spaces and community in between the buildings and things.
Yeah,
those were
already
great.
exist. Yeah, those kind of exist now, and that's why we were showing those. I would tell you, are those going to remain? No, they're not. But how do we do it? That's why we kind of went to this design and said, okay, as you're coming down the road, how do you make sure you're always being conscious of the clock tower? How do we incorporate the smokestack? How do we incorporate this stuff into it so we're not necessarily losing the architecture? yes, that is absolutely a part of it, because you don't want to lose the historic nature. That's what makes it unique. But at the same time, we can't keep some of the buildings, so how do we go about doing it? So
You still planning on the concrete structure being a parking space?
well, yes, it'll be a parking space. We're going to try to figure out if we can build 3 to 4 stories on top of it.
Okay.
Oh, I thought you were saying that it was so big, that was the only thing it could be.
Well, right now, let's see if I can do it. So
It is, yes.
So,
But it's also so big it might be able to
if you
support
look at this, so
something
what it is, it's
very-
so big inside, we can actually believe we can build a building in the middle of it.
Really?
We have some pretty cool ideas that we could spend the next 5 hours talking about. We're not going
Yeah.
to. But there's one thing that we are
Hockey rink on the roof.
strictly adamant that we're going to do is we're going to create a sense of place and a very unique presence that does not exist in this room. So I despise some of the concrete rubber stamp jungle that you see. It's, oh, you got retailer X, Y, and Z. Okay, great. No, yeah, do that.
Rooftop garden.
Yes.
Candy garden.
I mean,
Bees.
There will be
Beehives.
garden areas that people want to go to.
Yeah,
That is,
the idea is
that is going to happen.
that structure is strong enough right now. Again, if we build 3 separate communities within here to hit the 3 demographics we're talking about, we potentially, the way we've looked at it, is you have a building up here inside the walls, because the walls are 17 foot tall. So you build them inside the walls, and you can have its own pool and amenity space just for that structure. And you create a separate pool and amenity space for each structure, and they have their own. So there's a way to do it, but again, it's just getting a little bit ahead of how we get there. And we're still subject to fire codes on how we can build under the 85-foot requirement, things like that. So the odds are that structure will probably be, because that top floor is so tall, probably 3 stories of stick frame on top of is all we can physically build. We're talking on top of there 100 to 125 like super luxury units, and then going with different price tiers down from there, because the views will be unlike anything in the market.
So
You
you're
can
not,
watch the football game from that space.
and you're planning other buildings on the remaining property,
Correct.
but that's the
That'll be-
part that has yet to be laid out.
Correct, it has to be laid out, trying to negotiate with the neighborhood, how's it gonna look? I mean, some of the plans, we saw 10 to 12 buildings on the property, it's 21 acres. It's a pretty big size, so.
Very interesting.
Are you involving that? Well, it's surrounded by a neighborhood and one factory next door. What are your thoughts about all this neighborhood and that Doral Park and all the Norwoodians come there and watch their soccer games, and it's right across the street, and all the apartment buildings there, and this would be such a stark contrast. And
Part of the master planning, we'll probably look out 2 or 3 blocks and say how these things ultimately get tied into the project at some point, whether it's redoing part of the boulevard, whether it's redoing other things. We can't just say we're only sticking to one parcel. But I'll tell you one specific question we had for both the finalist architects. We kind of have an idea where we're going with it, but was, have you ever redeveloped a site that's pigeonholed by rail tracks, a highway, and industrial on 3 individual sides? Because really, that's what you got to think about. Like, yes, there's a neighborhood, but that site is pigeonholed. I mean, there's, everybody kept saying, why haven't you guys sold the outlets to office users? Well, they can't even get there. There's no way to even get back to the property without physically taking buildings down. So, yes, there's a tiny road, but on one side, it's not even 2 lanes wide. So we're going to have to think about a completely different plan of how to market this site overall. I mean, yes, we need to incorporate some of this. What it looks like. How do we, but again, we want the community to come in. Like, I'd love to have a big Christmas tree there that they come for lighting. Like, I'd love to have those opportunities, because I don't really see that right now in the community. So yes, when we say we want to engage the community, it's like that's how we actually make it there's more money.
maybe we can start having Christmas
to
down
Right.
That's why you should keep that little roundabout, put the tree in the middle of the roundabout in front of the
Oh,
tower.
right in front of the
Beautiful
tower.
photography.
Yeah, so I think, hear what you're saying, we've looked at plans that include that, we've looked at others that don't. Everybody's kind of different on how they want to approach it, but lanes aren't really wide enough to use as a main access road, so the question is how do we do that? When we showed the council, city council, presentation before, we kind of showed the 2 roads going all the way back, but then engineers came in and said, that's not wide enough, and we'll never be able to service it, you've got to figure out a different way to have traffic patterns in here. So, great idea we did internally, but we're not the architects and engineers. So
It's not it's not going to be there's going to be a public space and there's going to be a community aspect that will be attractive to people that are not there, are not living there, are not going there to, is it dental office? Maybe, but it's got to have that feel first to attract those unique tenants. There will be a retail aspect, but these aren't going to be huge national retail chains that by the book say this fits my criteria, which is a good thing in a way. But it's also going to take a lot of work from us to make it attractive and to make them successful. We don't want someone to go there, rent from us, and then leave in 3 years. So there's a lot of aspects that have to work together in a really team environment and make sure that we're orchestrated in a way that makes it a successful program. So it's going to be complicated, but at the end result, we're sure and we're fairly confident it's going to work out.
Yeah, there's easier ways to do this, but we're not taking the easy way. That's not right.
Are they thinking they're going to have to take away the green space up Park Avenue to widen that for traffic?
Not right now.
We have not gotten in that level of discussion.
At this point, no, we haven't seen that at all.
Okay.
There are, keep in mind, we're talking about putting some uses on here that are high traffic generators. But if you look historically, when the factory was fully operational, if you look at the parking lots just today on the aerial, that was filled. And so when you look at peak traffic volumes, those streets did handle it at one point, and not a whole lot has really changed from a trip standpoint in that area. We're going to do full studies, don't get me wrong, but if you look at all the different ways in and out of that site, you're not really only taking one avenue in that. So there are options. Again, traffic counts will give us some more insight on that, but I don't know if it's necessary at this point to start to talk about drastic traffic changes.
Awesome. All right, gentlemen, thank you.
Yes, thank you. Appreciate it.
All right, so now we'll go back onto our regular scheduled agenda, and we'll move on to 3.02, where we're going to talk about market share, otherwise known as increasing enrollment.
Yes, ma'am. Sorry.
All right. Sorry that there's 3 PowerPoints all in a row. It really isn't the best. So I'm going to be very short and quick here.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Nick.
Thanks, Nick.
Yep, I think we're okay. Thank you. Well, I think we all know that we do need to regain our market share and increase enrollment. I think that is a given. So we took a look at the decline, and it's almost 13% when you go back 5 or 6 years. So we're down at 1785, and actually it's less than that because a lot of the 1785 are at the Oaks or at a specialized school. So we probably have about 1,700 children sitting in seats on any given day. So things really have declined. And I think the worrisome part about that is I don't think just our staff and our parents realize that. I know our staff does, and everyone just keeps thinking we have 2,000 students, but it's gradually dropped. So we really do need to get back up to that 2,000. So here is a possible solution. If you really want to bring parents in and attract people, you do need to offer them something, because right now they're voting with their feet. So one thing would be some kind of specialized program that would keep students in the district, attract the families we've lost, and that parents and community will view as attractive. Some kind of specialty program. Now, I did put out there Montessori just because Norwood had started with a Montessori preschool, but you could do this with STEM or anything else that parents would find attractive. But I use Montessori as the model because I know there had been discussion, and it makes sense if you already have something like that. I know you had a Montessori committee, there was discussion over the years, so I really think it would be very smart to reconvene that committee, put some young parents on that committee, figure out what they want, what would attract them to send their children to Norwood or to come back in. So I think that's critical that we have parents on that committee. Where can you put it? Well, the great news is, 2 years from now, after we use that middle school as swing space, it's going to sit there empty, which is not attractive or a good visual for Norwood. So parents will already be used to going there. I think there won't be right now, a little bit nervous about going to the middle school. 2 years from now, that'll be all gone. Plus, it's a very inexpensive way to start a new program. You don't have to pay for the overhead because the building's already heated, all the utilities are paid for. You already have a middle school principal who the first year or two could do the 3 or 4 or 5 evals of the teachers there. So it's pretty inexpensive that you're not investing $1 million if you were opening a new building and had to hire new staff and pay for utilities. And the good news is we don't have to throw this together overnight. We really have 2 years to plan. Get parents involved and get the word out so when it opens in 2 years, I think you'd have a pipeline of children who would be interested in going. In fact, possibly next year, one of the ways to start is open a second Montessori preschool at Williams. So, or one of the other elementaries. So when this starts, you already have 2 preschools, and those 2 preschools move up to first grade. So now you've got 4 classrooms, and I bet some of the parents who were in there in previous years would move their first grade child back just because they were interested, like Montessori, but they had no option and had to take them out. The good news is we've got XU right down the street, and they are the source of Montessori teachers in the region. I can't explain why Montessori is so popular in this region, but it is. We all know it is. Can't explain it, but I'm thinking, okay, let's capitalize on everyone seeming to like it. So we've got our source of our teachers. The cost will be you will have to buy Montessori materials for the classroom. My recommendation, if we hire any teachers in the next 2 years, try to hire someone with a Montessori background to say in a year, we need you to help start our program. So we would look for that licensure so we would be ready to go. If it goes really well, expands, sometime in the future we certainly could talk about possibly a levy to fund it. But honestly, at first, this is truly for a very small investment. You will get a large return on investment if this goes, which I truly believe it will, and you recruit back lots of families, lots of children. It's certainly worth the little investment. And the good news is you've got 2 years to get the word out. Everyone would know about it. And I think you definitely want to target your private and parochial school parents to get them back, because we really have lost a lot of our market share. Probably 40% of our market share is in private and parochial. But you do need something to attract parents back, because if they left, they'll say, well, I'm just coming back to what I left. In this case, they'd be coming back to something new and something they would find exciting or valuable or want their children involved in. Questions? That was really it. Next steps, if the board feels this is a way we should go, convene a committee of parents and really ask them, what would you like to see in 2 years? We have space, we have a building, which really we're blessed. We have a great space that we could start a program in, see what the parents want, spend the next 1.5 years marketing it, and we could be ready to go when Williams moves out of the middle school. And I think that's certainly a better option to getting our market share back than trying some other avenues that probably won't be as effective. Yes?
So I was on this committee earlier we'd definitely like to down with you and go over what we already
Wonderful.
discussed and things that we found, hurdles that we had. And I'd like to continue that conversation in the future with a new committee, or if you want to make that part of education, I'm sure Alice would love to be part of that.
That would
with
be
Montessori.
wonderful.
I would love it.
And then we'll recruit some parents to see what they want.
But I'd like
and
to
see
sit
what-
down and have a meeting
Yeah.
with you first so we can
I
discuss,
would love that.
get you caught up on what we already found out and things like that.
Fabulous. Okay, that's
So-
it, short and sweet.
So if we do reconvene a new Montessori committee, I think this would be a superintendent committee. This wouldn't be a board committee. But I would like to see 2 participants from our body on that board. So I'm guessing that would be potentially you. Is your participation contingent on your
So-
conversation with Mary?
No, I was on the committee previously, so I have at least what we've already discussed coming in. I also went to Montessori, so I have a unique.
Did you really?
I did
That's
Montessori
fabulous.
preschool and kindergarten myself, so
Okay.
I have a unique perspective on growing up in that experience and how I transitioned into elementary school. So making that easier for students was exactly what I wanted to talk about when we discussed it the last time, because that was the most difficult part for me, was transitioning back to a standard elementary. So being able to make sure that those things are taken into account is something I really want to make sure that is.
You're right, parents never want to transition their children back. That's why you end up
Well,
K to
there
6,
just
K to
isn't-
8, because you're right, they never want to leave.
Or those that do, they may only want it for a couple of years, and then when they do, there's kind of a lack there. So making sure that that is really well bridged if we aren't going to service, especially if we're not going to be able to afford to service up to 8 years immediately, we have to be mindful of transitioning those young kids into a standard environment in the classroom so that they aren't falling through the cracks or falling behind in their classroom work. So it's just something to be mindful of. But I definitely want to explore this again. I'm very happy that it's back on the table. I think there is potential for gaining back some of our parents who really, like you said, they left for first grade because they didn't have a first grade classroom. So I'm definitely interested in pursuing it again.
All right,
I
great.
was almost one of those parents. I went to Amonio and I said, how can I get my kid a 3rd year of Montessori here? And he said, just leave her in there. And I said, and then we go to first grade. He said, no. I said, I'm not keeping my kid back. This is ridiculous. So I had to just bite it and send her to kindergarten. But
Plus, we know there's demand. I drove past that Azalea Montessori.
right?
Very attractive with the glass in the windows, student artwork and stuff you could look in and see. Nicely done. So the demand really is out there.
Right, and they're in a funny little pocket, and it doesn't bother them at all. People are coming anyways.
All right, that was it. Thank you. All right, I will get moving.
All right, and that leads us to 3.03, which is advertising and marketing.
All right, I think it's you. Do you want to move over there?
Oh, is it?
It's you.
Yes.
It's
Oh, it
you.
is.
Come on over.
That's you, Glenn.
We'll hook you up.
Sorry, Alex. How with me?
Didn't have anything else to do,
That's it.
nothing else to do, right?
Alex, do you have a PowerPoint also?
I do not have PowerPoint, I'm sorry.
You're gonna be disappointed.
You got time, just put one together real quick.
We could just give him one and see what he does with it.
Make it an improv game. But don't look behind you. Just look. The common mockery game where the newsreel was behind you and you had to guess what you were talking about.
Who's line?
Whose line is it anyway?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, well, good to see everyone. I'm Glenna Edwards. I think most of you know me because of my work serving families and students across the district. I have a myriad of skills with mental health support in schools, early education, and business communication. And today my topic is about marketing and community engagement. And we'll go through a few things, but key points are 5 strategies that I'm hoping that we might adopt together. This quote caught my attention, and I wonder if it'll resonate with you as well. Many schools are incredibly effective. Unfortunately, if nobody knows about their successes, Even though their students are more likely to get to college of their choice or land the job of their dreams, the staff, the leaders, and methods behind those successes will remain unknown and underappreciated. And this takes me to, we have all these silos and pieces of communication that's happening that are great things, but how do we take the pieces of the quilt and show the whole picture? Part of that is not simply communicating more, it's communicating in an excellent system, and that's the outcome that you want, is an excellent system of communication. I'm proposing a system because that'll keep the cogwheel moving. This is one of my inspiration pieces. Last July, a mom sent me a picture the day her child was born and let me know that little Daniel is a future Norwood graduate.
Aww.
And I got to thinking, what if every parent in 45212 was immediately excited that their child was going to go to Norwood City Schools? And we have, this is Selena, is the older one. She's going to be coming to kindergarten. And then little baby Daniel, and then they have an older sister. So that just got me thinking, like, what could we do to make sure that everyone knows about the opportunities that her mom knows? So these are the 5 areas that I'm proposing, starting with evaluation, creating a communication team, a strong communication plan, deploying strategies, and sustaining and continuously improving. And we'll start with evaluation. So I received access to our Facebook information to analyze some of our data. And what you see here is that over 150 days, this is what it looked like in terms of people seeing something about Norwood City School District, our main page, on their page. And you'll notice it's pretty flat. We may average 248 page appearances per day, but that does not necessarily equal engagement. Sadly, but also of note, is the first spike is when Dr. Sabo passed away, and then the second spike around day 85 is when we sent the letter about view and construction updates with the chart. That was well received, both in paper, and then people were going to our Facebook page to want to read it again, or they heard about it. It's an area of growth. This just means Norwood City Schools page popped up on someone's page, whether it was shared by somebody else or a unique user, either direction. Same time frame, over 150 days, the number of people who engaged with our page is our greatest opportunity. We have many days when there's 0 engagement whatsoever. The spikes are for the same reasons. This means people don't share our information, those kinds of things. But we can change this. Also, it's of note that we have 80% women who follow our page and only 20% men, which is not far from like a standard Facebook page, which is about 76% for most organizations similar to us. We also know that your younger people, we have to think about, they're getting information in a different way, like Instagram, Twitter has its own kind of following, but this is Facebook. And Norwood happens to have a really strong Facebook presence. Our police department is like over 8,000, almost 9,000 people follow that page. If you look at ours, we have 636 likes in the top. So we can do way better than that, don't you think? The next thing is deploy strategies. Here, there's not just one strategy, but you kind of have to be mindful of 2 or 3 at a time and know that there's others coming. So we'll create a drumbeat. I'll show that on the next page. We can leverage other pages. Right now, we're not linking or tagging or sharing or gathering anything. So there's great opportunities, whether it's the Norwood Athletic page or Avenues for Success, all these things, if people are committed communicating, we should be sharing that, or our rising stars. There's so many things that people don't know, and if you visualize silos, that's how I see it. I have a unique opportunity because if I'm serving diapers to diploma, I see this all the time. I see the silos, but maybe this silo has no idea that this good thing is happening over here. Also, giving people reasons to engage. We should be promoting events and check-ins and events like our preschool page. We can use the algorithms of social media. So if we put an event for our preschool night or our kindergarten meetings, then those things are going to go out to 45212 people, and they're going to get a ripple effect, so they will see them in a new way. So they may have seen the paper somewhere, but this is another way. We know in marketing you're going to have to see something 6 or 7 times before it actually like hits your brain. So those events are really important. I'm sure, how many people are on Facebook? So do you get, oh, you might like this event? So we can leverage that pretty easily. It's just consistent. Somebody needs to be on top of it.
Isn't there a way for cross-posting to be linked? So like, let's say, if you share something on the athletic page, it automatically will post to the Norwood home page. So that way anybody, maybe you don't have a high schooler yet, and you don't follow the high school athletics page, but you follow the district page. All of a sudden you see it, and maybe now you want to go to that Friday football game because they're presenting some award or something for an alumni or whatever it is. So isn't there a way we can link
Yes,
district-wide for posts for clubs and events?
Lots of ways. But this would come into the communication team. We need to row the boat in a similar way. Also connecting personally, I was very, I won't forget this, last fall, a parent who I have great respect for said, I really just want you to send us a letter once a quarter that says all the great things that are going on. And I think that spoke to like the view letter and the construction update. We could do that. We don't even have to print the paper. We can put it out there on social media. Some things you might want in print, but it doesn't always have to be in print. But even a letter that is a JPEG that's out there, people will feel more connected personally. Of course, making things visually appealing within consent and media agreements, like short video clips, slides, shows, pictures, we can do all that. And we can be mindful of what our media releases are and our best practices. Here's the communication drumbeat example. So creating a consistent flow of positive information to a targeted audience. I would suggest Sunday, Wednesday, Friday posts to get going. Those are days that, if you just look at stats for Facebook, that people tend to look at their Facebook on those days. And align the posts to celebrate success, highlight education and the whole child mission, providing did you know type information, like where you can go for this information, where you can find that, and then offering points of connection, how to find enrollment, how to find your after-school provider, those kinds of things. As for the communication team, we would invite a team member from each building. This can be discussed, train them, develop a communication plan, involve Board of Education, obviously, set term limits. Maybe, a teacher from View does not want to be on the communication team for a full year. Maybe they want to do 6 months. We need to figure that out, because sometimes if you have like, okay, I'm doing this and I'm paying attention to this for 6 months, somebody might sign up for it who wouldn't otherwise. Showcase our diapers to diploma success. I think that's one of the value adds, like that we can increase enrollment if people are excited from the time they move into Norwood or they move into, that will be a really good outcome when people move here because they want their kids to go to school here. Team members move social media forward with likes, shares, positive comments. That's another way of using the algorithms and the ripple effect. So if you have 6 people on a communication team and they all agree, like this is how we do this, we all like it, then that goes out to their networks. It's another good reason to have term limits because you expand your ripple effect. For a communication plan, it's really important that we say things well and we highlight success and are positively moving things forward. I have an example that I brought with me. Norwood Ready Kids, when I took it on, I noticed we were going in a lot of different directions, and that's a team of multiple agencies working together for our 0 to 5-year-olds. And so we created, I took all their admin access away until we had this figured out. A Norwood Ready Kids communication marketing plan, like what our purpose is, our guiding compass, when in doubt, ask. Before we post, is it true, kind, correct? Using spell check, grammar, permission to post, using the event tools on Facebook, all those kinds of things. Our brand, what is our brand? That type of thing. So if anybody wants to see that, I brought them. Also, a communication plan from another school district. And then ODE, this up in the right corner, our communication tools, they have a template that we can borrow and use for certain things. So this can all go into what is the overall strategy for the district to move marketing forward so that the silos are more like a very healthy, happy farm. Hometown example, so this on a smaller scale, Norwood Ready Kids, December 2018, we had around 70-something participants, and in 1 year, we have a 96% increase. And I really attribute that to an improved communications plan to get people to row the boat in a similar direction. And we're just really excited about that.
Glenna?
Yes.
I reached out the other day because I was wondering, in what ways do you want to be engaged? What type of information are you interested in? What do you want to see from us in terms of a board, in terms of a district? And the general consensus for most of it, they're like, we see sports stuff, we sign up for our kids' stuff, and we see that. We want to know when policies change. We want to know if there's a way we can give back or be part of something bigger. If there's a fundraiser for the school, if there's a levy that they want to team up on, if there's some type of drive, anything where they can participate, they want to know about it. If we have curriculum changes, they want to know about it. So they want more meat to their potatoes. They don't want just the frilly extras, and it's always wonderful to see our students succeed, and we want those posts, but we don't want that to be everything we post. They want to see us working. They want to see what we're achieving. When we set a goal, we could even tell them, hey, we're working on this right now, and here's how we're going towards it. So I think that we need to really think positively towards the message that we're sending and not just sending fluff,
Right.
Especially when it comes to the district page. If we want all parents, no matter what age group they have a student, or even community members to be involved, we have to do more than only post the excess. We have to show them the meat.
And I have heard that as well. I get your point on that. We have to have that in the communication plan. Like, what are our parameters? What's important? And I think that's why you create a structure. And we would need each other to do that.
So I'm really in favor of having this communication plan from the standpoint that we all recognize that we do great work and we've always done great work, but we don't always have the best way of showing that work to the outside community. And so later this year, we're going to have a substitute levy on the ballot. And so shoring up our communication plan and how we get that messaging out and having consistent messaging and doing it now is going to set the stage for later, whenever we're into that campaign season, when we're trying to get that substitute levy passed. And then people says, oh, you're just now telling us about all this stuff that you didn't do before. So let's start it now, right? Let's get on the boat and get it rowing the right way now. And I think that'll set us up much, much better in the future. And I think this is great work.
Thank you. I completely agree.
I've already had a couple of parents reach out and say they would love to lend their support towards being on a levy committee from the community standpoint. So I know we've got people out there ready to go and show their support for Norwood schools. We just have to make sure they know what they need the message to be. So
Right.
this is a wonderful thing.
I agree.
Well, I think a lot of the reason why people see sports posts all the time is because there's somebody manning
Yeah.
a Norwood
You
athletic
do a great
page.
job.
So if we have somebody manning this page, right, that's the problem. The problem isn't that we're not doing anything. The
Right.
problem is it's nobody's job to post it. So if it's somebody's job to maintain it, as Alex and Emily do a wonderful job maintaining the
Well,
athletics
it
page,
has
then
been, but it hasn't been the main focus. And unfortunately, last year we had a lot more things to be focused on that took that away from us. And it really did slow us down in terms of growing our social media. That's been a goal for the last couple of years. I know since Brandon and I got elected, was to focus on remarketing and rebranding. And that started with the billboards, and it started with the new logos. It started with making decisions on how the buildings were going to look. And all of it bridged together. And it's been a wonderful process. And I'm glad that we're finally able to get this piece put into the pie. But we've been trying to get it for so long, and you've set a wonderful example for really making sure that we know what a page should look like and what regular posting and content should be. So thank you for setting a good example.
Yeah. Well, and as Glenna has already pointed out, I mean, you know, I owned a small business for 10.5 years, and I've seen all these statistics on my own page, and it's all about what you're posting, right? I mean, you have to post to get engagement. And I'm sure she knows all of this, but you know, adding pictures to your post will drive, will drive people seeing it and that kind of thing. So, I think that's just what's been missing, is just nobody has been focusing on it, and I think we've solved that.
So two things I want to highlight here. Number one, our staff community is more Twitter focused than they are Facebook focused. And I think there's, and our parent community is more Facebook focused, so I think there's a disconnect there, and we know, we recognize that.
Meet on Instagram, guys.
And I understand that Twitter's a safe space versus the wild, wild west of Facebook, and I understand all of that. The other thing that I wanted to highlight was, you had mentioned Did You Knows. Our website is impossible to navigate. I spent, over the weekend, I had somebody reach out to me and says, hey, I want to see about using one of our facilities for an event. And she was like, how do I do this? How do I go about this? And I said, well, there's a form that you can get from our website. You know, it took me 30 minutes to get to the form, because I didn't have my computer. I was on my mobile device, and our website works a little bit differently on it. 30 minutes to get to this form to share that with a resident on how they could fill it out for facility use requests.
We heard the same thing for preschool signups last year, that people were having trouble finding forms that they needed. And,
So
we'll get on that also.
So I'm excited about the Did You Knows, because if we have that Did You Know,
here's the link for this.
Here's how you get to this, and
that's part of the drumbeat, right? So we pick what our top 4 things are, we push those out. At some point, we pick a different top 3 or 4 things. We need testimonials, we need teacher faces, we need family faces. You know, people, we'll build that together.
There's a women's group that wants to make a page. They want to make a lawn sign, a yard sign, and then have a page, a Facebook page that they can go to, that they want to curate and have it only be. We love Norwood. Ask us why. Norwood City Schools. Ask us why. And then there'd be testimonials on this page, curated. And these are just citizens. Amber and I watch these people talk about it. And they want to make this happen.
They said my neighbors send their kid to private schools, but they could come talk to me and ask me why I'm sending my kid up the street to Sharpsburg or down the street to Williams. Or, new families, if they're searching for districts to move to, and they're like, man, where do I find out about Norwood? And they look online and they see this parent forum driven with information on, hey, I love this. My teacher does this for my kids and goes way above and beyond. Our principal does this every morning, and this is how we feel welcome as a family. And I think that's a really crucial part to the puzzle. We should maybe invite some of those members in to be a part of that communication team that you were talking about, so that we know what kind of message they want to hear as new parents, like you said, new parents, or parents who have kids in younger programs before they decide what that next step is for their child.
Yeah, we've got to speak to those people who've got tiny kids and no kids.
Right. And so in
Because
our
they tell us all the
communication
time they
plan-
don't know how to find out.
Right. So we would include things in our communication plan like who's our audience, who are our stakeholders, what's our purpose, mission, team expectations. If we're bringing a variety of people together, we got to have our expectations really clear. So we're moving things forward in a positive way. Our key strategies, what is our brand, what's our online etiquette, and cultural competency. I would like to expand my role in this way because I really do think I have a good sense of the cultural competency. On one hand, I grew up here and then moved on to college and then kind of traveled the world a little bit and had 10 years in a Berkshire Hathaway company. So I have like this world perspective, local perspective, and then now I've come home. So I get it. Like I kind of get what people are looking for, and I'm also very open to listening. One of the things I like about these 5 areas is that you can deploy strategies right away. You don't have to wait. We could go deeper into each of these areas, but we mostly can deploy strategy and let the other areas grow. But somebody has to pay attention, like we were talking before, which I would like to do in partnership with everyone. What we would anticipate deliverable-wise is increase our likes. There's no reason we should have 600 only people. Increase our engagement, people sharing and linking, increase connection across platforms. More families report they're informed about the school district. I'd really like to hear that. And then employees report they're more informed about district-wide success. I think we'll have a sense of more pride, even after 3 months, 6 months, a year. If we can find ways to track that, that would be really cool. Good marketing shows us what we can be. Marketing is telling the world you're a rock star, and it's about telling a true story well. We have a really good story here, but people don't know it. So that, my ask is to be that person, to help lead that team. Do you have questions for me? I also brought how successful schools market themselves, engage parents, build trust. If anybody wants to see some materials, you're welcome to them. And some marketing things that we added with Norwood Kids to try and get a sense of like you're in. So I'm in Norwood Kids stickers and little things. Questions for me?
How soon after, I guess, like forming a group, do you anticipate taking that feedback and making it viable? Like, what's a good estimate on a timeline for how we can get this actually functional?
I think we can deploy strategies as soon as you say go in terms of that drumbeat piece.
I said go 2 years ago. I'm just saying. Right? So how soon?
Tomorrow. But then, gathering a team would take, a couple weeks of thought. And letting that team know we can ebb and flow. We can teach, train, and deploy really well as long as somebody's keeping it part of their main thing.
So I have a question for Mary. So would this be a change in her official duties and responsibilities, or would this just be an add-on, or
We were
how are
looking,
we looking at
we
this?
were looking at a supplemental, which is later under the personnel.
Okay.
Because since Glenn has such a great background in marketing, that's what we were planning on doing, because we can't afford to lose her in her
I
current
see that.
role.
I see that.
So that's,
And I've said for a while that this needs to be somebody who's focused on this project, and that's good that we're considering a supplemental for it so that it is its own thing and
yes,
it's
it
worth
is a
that effort.
supplemental. But the good news is, since she works in the district and is in all these programs, she already knows so much of the information. When you hire someone from the outside, you have to spend so much time with them trying to get them up to speed and explaining everything.
Yeah.
So I'm just happy because, this is not my area of expertise, so I know when I need to have someone who can do this.
But that shows your area of expertise. Knowing when you need someone else to do
Right.
the job, that's its own expertise.
And I'm sure this was off in the left margin, there was some wording, not on this slide, but on a different slide. I'm sure that was, yeah, the best practices and stuff. I'm sure that's taking into account, like, perhaps parents haven't given permission to use kids' images and stuff. I mean, that's just something that, I don't know how many parents don't give that permission, but whoever's posting.
We must be mindful of
We
that
have to
at
be
all
very,
times.
yeah.
Even if a parent in Norwood Kids has consented on paper, we still ask in the moment, do we have consent to post this picture? So that took a while to get that team to understand that.
Yeah, because I would hate to see us get in trouble.
Yeah, and that's why we have to train and be on top of it.
Well, I'm in favor of this, so.
Yeah, definitely. Same.
Thank you for listening. And in some ways, you know, it adds work, but there are certain things that it will make better for my work. Since I'm already serving 0 to 18, I'm constantly like, oh, you don't know this? I'm sorry. Now I can kind of help push out the things that I am already taking a pulse of.
Stuff that should make sense will now make sense. And that's going to save so much headache for our parents and residents.
And build pride and all the good things, you know, all the good things.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you for listening.
And now we're going to move on to item 3.04.
We're still progress.
Or unless you want to wait until later.
You want to wait? I mean, we could ask Nick to come.
Okay, I'm sorry, I do not have a PowerPoint for you guys. You have to stare at me, unfortunately.
There's an attachment on the agenda.
Get out. Yeah. Didn't you know the rules for tonight?
He's down to 4% battery.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
There's
plugins.
Bring
I'm
your
just charger, but, so over the past few months, the athletic department has received emails and some questions about adding a 7th and 8th grade softball team. There have been a lot of students that play rec that were asking about it, and so in December and then again in January, we asked the 7th and 8th graders, are you interested in playing softball? At the December meeting, we had 19 there. One was absent that I found out afterwards. And then in January, during a basketball game, or I guess right before a game, they had another meeting and there were 17 there as well. So obviously, more than enough to field a softball team. And I think this would be a great opportunity for us to build a feeder program. Last year was the first year in a long time that we had a JV softball team. So starting those kids with the same program, the same like sayings and plays and things like that at a younger level, that can build our program to be much better than it is. We already have 2 supplemental contracts that are available, so those would be filled, and we applied for a grant through Dick's Sporting Goods for $2,500, and it looks like we will be receiving that, so that will offset the money that we need for like the middle school. They use softer softballs, new bats, helmets, and all that. So their practices will either be at the high school softball field or at Waterworks 4, and then as well as the games that we play there as well.
Do you already have folks interested in coaching?
Yes, we do.
You know my question, did you gauge interest for baseball?
We have not heard as much about baseball. That is something that I do want to look at moving forward.
Because we have a supplemental contract
We do,
for
yes.
baseball as well. So just so that everybody knows, in our supplemental agreement through the NTA, so these positions are already listed as approved positions. They just, for the past number of years, have just gone unfilled. So we don't have to change or amend the contract to add additional positions. We're just going to fill existing positions that have been previously unfilled. So this makes this really easy. I think this is a good opportunity to further enrich our kids. I think this is great. I'm kind of with Debbie. I would love to see middle school baseball as well, if we can get the interest.
Our girls
did so good in high school. It's encouraging to have younger ones actually seeing that activity and want to be part of it when they get older.
I think it shows the boys up a little bit, you know?
I was gonna say, I think if
Yeah.
you have a softball team, the boys are gonna be like,
Well, I want a baseball
"Well,
team.
let's," and then
Absolutely.
they might express some interest in that.
Is
Or let the
the,
girls play baseball.
is the 19 taking away from our track and field numbers? How is that gonna impact?
That I do not have the numbers for. I know at least half of them were 7th graders, so
Okay.
they would be new. So I can look into the numbers for the 8th graders that we have to see if they would be taken away from track.
Okay. Awesome. I think this is a great idea. I think it's a great opportunity, and it's not very expensive.
How are you guys surveying the kids to see what they might be interested in? Because obviously you got kids coming up from Knothole, from Little Indians, you know, they pretty much have a built-in interest in whatever sport. But how do you guys go about surveying them to say, hey, would you guys like to start up, you know, some random insert team here?
So what we did for softball was we threw it on Facebook, on Twitter. We made announcements saying there'll be an interest meeting during lunch this day. So just through the word of mouth and online.
But you're only putting out one sport at a time. Is there any way to say, like, is anybody interested in starting a team? Like, just of anything? What do you guys want to do?
Yeah, so we could do it the same way.
Okay.
Just put it online.
Because you might have a group of hockey players coming up. You don't know.
Sure.
Like, if they're interested, we could support them, you know, whatever they want to do.
And you waited all that time for that.
I have other stuff later. So.
Oh, awesome. Well, thank you so much. Now we're going to move on to section number 4, which is the Education Committee.
Finally on number 4.
Finally on number 4, Alice Brerica.
Hi, okay, so it says Norwood High School Course of Study, so I really stressed myself trying to read this thing, not knowing why it was on there, but I guess it's because the principal came and told us about it, so I don't know what you want me to say about it. That was great presentation, they've been adding some classes.
We approve it, you all approve it every year.
Oh, okay.
It's going to be built into
So I need
next
to
week's
make a
meeting for-
motion that we should approve those new classes, thank you, I knew.
At next
Thanks for
week's
your
meeting.
support, everybody.
Next week, no.
I say we should put this on the agenda for next week.
Okay.
Good job, everybody, thank you. Okay, and the next is, the college credit classes. I move that we also put that on for next week.
So this is a memorandum of understanding. So this is our contract between us and Cincinnati State.
To have them come and teach it here on our property.
Well,
Right,
no.
they opened up those and looked at those and, wow, this is new, I've never seen anything like this before,
Well,
but
it's-
it looks
it's
like
very
college credit
reasonable.
classes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, $41 a credit hour, it's very reasonable.
Right, I
It's
saw
hardly
that
moved
and I
at all.
thought, wow.
Plus, they pay for the books that we don't have to incur the cost, so it
And they
really.
come here, super awesome.
It's a great opportunity for our students
And
to leave eventually.
Well,
yeah,
state
they cut
costs.
costs on their college costs for after high school.
Yeah, between college credit and the work job training and vocational access, kids can pretty much walk into a career instead of debt. And it's fantastic that we have all these options.
It is. Do I need to do anything with that?
Yeah, that'll be on for next week.
Okay, next is a field trip. Laura Ferguson is taking her, I saw that they did this last year and it looked fabulous. Is it the bicycle club?
Yes.
And they learn how to fix their bikes too.
They actually, we do a grant with the Greater Cincinnati STEM collaboration and through UC, and they actually build bikes. So they, from start to finish, build the bikes. We have mentors that come in from Procter & Gamble, women scientists and engineers, and they will assist as well as other mentors. And then we take this trip at the end of the year to, they get to ride their bikes and do some other activities as well. along the way. Yeah,
And
it's-
Laura did a really great job of posting it on Facebook because I saw it and followed it, and they looked like they had a fabulous time.
They did.
It looked super awesome. And it's right after school, so we need to approve that, I guess, at the meeting. So I move that we put it there.
All right, anybody have any questions about the MOU? I know we discussed the course study pretty much at length, but the MOU or the field trip?
Pretty standard contract, and like she said, 41 credit hours, we can't.
Yeah, $41.
So reasonable.
Yeah. All right, we'll move on to section number 5, which is employment. So I'm going to start off before I turn it over to Superintendent Rennan. So the first thing that we are going to address in this section is we are going to make a formal proposal to appoint Mary Ronan as our district superintendent and remove the interim tag. I think this is a fantastic opportunity. I think the terms that we came to an agreement with are phenomenal. I'm extremely happy with how everything has just transpired. I just want to personally say that since you came on board, you've done nothing but just show your class. So
Thank you so much. I'm just delighted to be here in Norwood. I think it's a wonderful district, and I look forward to working with all of you and moving Norwood forward.
does anybody have any questions that they want to ask now before we move on to other business specifically relating to the contract that we can ask in the public setting? Any comments?
We love you, Mary.
Yes.
Right.
Thank you very much, and
No,
I
your-
love it here.
Your experience, your perspective has been absolutely wonderful. You came in, you hit the ground running, willing to take on everything that we had. I'm gonna cry. Everything that we had going on. You impressed us with your ability to just embrace Norwood as your own, and I appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
I will say to Mary's credit, every person I've talked to who works with her has said that she's been nothing but wonderful and efficient and responsive. I've also used Mary as a tool to tell parents, you know, I have a lot of conversations with parents who have taken their kids out of their schools and they have a lot of hard questions for me. And I say, please meet with Mary Ronan. You're going to have a new experience with her. I think she's super awesome. I think she is too. So I've definitely used Mary as a marketing tool.
Talking about rebranding the district.
Take that one.
I wrote that down.
Thank you.
Well, you all have such wonderful ideas, and just keep the ideas coming, and I'll try my best to implement them.
And I too, as I meet with the public and teachers, I had a teacher at the basketball game last night. What are you guys going to do to keep her? You're going to try to keep her, right? And it's just so hard to sit there and just
right.
So well, we all feel the same way, you know. So now it's just exciting. So we can't thank you. And I mean, this is an incredible opportunity for us. You know, we're just so fortunate that you came our way.
Thank you very much.
I agree. I think we were very lucky to snag you when we did, and it's just icing on the cake that we can keep you for a little bit longer. And can't imagine finding somebody better for this position. And you've already done so much. You've only been here for a few months, you know.
Well, the one thing I was told, like you guys said, everybody that we've talked to who's ever worked with you has had nothing but wonderful things to say. But the thing that stuck with me most, one of the trainings that we went to at OSBA, I ran into someone who said, you guys are set up in a really unique place because no matter who follows you, they know they're going to come into something great, because Mary doesn't leave you with problems and in a bad way. They're going to be really excited to try to come into Norwood after Mary because they know they're going to be following something that was done right. And I was like, that's one heck of a way to talk about somebody's ability to lead, because they know they'll follow you. It won't matter. No
I'm
pressure.
so happy it's public because also
She was about to bust.
Well, also to Mary's goodness is that people won't stop asking if we're keeping you. So if they know about you enough and are interested in you enough that they won't stop bothering us about what's happening with Mary Ronan, and I have to keep saying, February 20th, you'll find out. And then I thought, I hope we say it February 11th, because that would be really great if I could stop having to say this. And sometimes I even have to say, stop asking me, because they want to know so much.
Thank you for being willing
Now I
to put
can
up
tell
with us.
the world.
No, you're a great board to work with. We're going to do great things together.
All right, so now I'll turn it back over to you for the rest of the meeting.
All right.
Superintendent.
Let's see, let's start off with number 2. Alex, I think that's you.
So requesting Derek Alsip for the spring weight room. He's a wrestling coach now. He's also the strength coach in the fall, so he will be moving over to the spring. Joel Ward, baseball varsity assistant. That is continuing from previous years. And then Larry Parker, he was the track coach in previous years. He asked to return, and he is a great person to have around because he knows so much about track. So.
All right, then number 3, classify subs. We have hired, it's always nice to add an additional sub, and we also hired 3 educational aides to replace individuals who left the district. And we do have a teacher, she was on leave of absence this year, and she is returning next year, so we have put her into the teacher count for next year. And then I think number 6, we're back with you, Alex.
Chris Couch, he will finish up the winter weight room from January 27th to February 21st. Patrick Manley will be the varsity softball assistant. In previous years, he had been a volunteer. Also for Chris Couch for the spring, boys varsity track assistant, and that is continuing from last year. And then same from last year, Don Jackson for the boys varsity tennis coach. And then moving forward, Aaron Chenault, he is going to be a varsity football coordinator, specifically with the defense. And a little bit about him, he is currently an intervention specialist at Butler Tech. He went to Fairfield High School, was a top 100 recruit in the nation for football. He went to UC. He was a UC team captain and an NFL prospect, and he's been at Walnut Hills before this, as well as Sycamore High School. So I think he's a great person to have on our staff. And then Peyton Williams, a graduate of Norwood, he went to Mount St. Joe's and played football, and he will be back with us to do the defensive backs.
All right, then number 7 is the supplemental contract for Glenna. Thank you for that great presentation. And number 8, it's a change in status. Last month, Anna went through as a varsity football assistant when he really wants to be the 8th grade football coach.
Okay.
And that concludes the personnel portion.
Perfect. Any questions? All right, we're going to chug right along and dive straight into policy. Very cool.
So I am going to defer to Mrs. Chesson. I'm going to
All right.
highlight these many policies.
That's right. We have 13 policies for your consideration this evening. Some are slight changes and some are a little bit more than that, but I think they'll go smoothly. This will be at this board meeting your first reading of that. The first one is the agenda format. BDDB, which is just changing some of the verbiage. It's always been pretty similar in the past. We've always had a consent agenda. They just are changing that it requires a motion to change the agenda, and now we would just require a majority vote and a 2/3 vote if we wanted to make additional modifications to the agenda. So instead of just saying a vote of the majority, they say a 2/3 vote. And the consent agenda remains almost the same. They're just changing the terminology to, you could put items together on a consent agenda that are considered non-controversial, just to move things along. You've always had that option. That's the first one. The next one deals with the purchasing procedure, so as part of our fiscal management. No changes to this policy, but the content, it allows for a cross-reference link to another policy. Sometimes you do that just because the law changes or you want to refer. So there's a couple of them this month that are simply no changes to the content, but just a cross-reference link, and that's among them. So no changes to our purchasing. The cash in schools buildings, code DM, is again the same thing, simply a cross-reference link to the policy. And so again, no change to the content. Our student wellness policy is slightly different. It allows for us to not need, moving forward, to report annually our compliance to ODE. So they're just taking out that regulation. Our wellness policy remains intact otherwise, but again, it's just removing that notion that we have to report something to ODE on an annual basis about our student wellness program. The next policy is staff gifts and solicitations. This policy is a little different because you'll see on the first page, it talks about when staff solicit donations from the community members or other entities, those donations become immediate property of the district and shall formally be board approved. Staff members must follow all board policies regarding the receipt, deposit, and eventual spending of those donations. So all of that receipt, that information has to be in accordance with all your other board policies as it relates to cash in school buildings, and they have to follow all of our in-district policies. So that was something that was important to our work moving forward. It was revised in 18, originally adopted in 2000, but that is a change for us. And I think it reflects some additional donations that are out there in the world that people want to give to staff, so it allows them to maintain that control in a positive way, and for them to go through all the right procedures so that we've crossed our T's and dotted our I's. The next one about student suspension and the following one about expulsion are really similar in their changes. There is a new rule that ODE, a new state law rather, so that every district in the state of Ohio has been charged to reduce the number of out-of-school suspensions and out-of-school expulsions as defined by state law, particularly focusing on grades pre-K to pre-K through 3. So the whole hope in this charge is that those suspensions and expulsions will be eliminated by the year 2021 and 2022. So, and how they categorize that, they understand that school districts might have serious offenses that would require us to ask students not to be a part of our organization, but these are for non-serious offenses. So again, this is state law, and we are required to bring that into our current policies that we have in place. It's always something we've tried to do before, but now the state has it written down and documented that that is their charge for districts, public districts in the state of Ohio. So that's a little different. But we did know that was coming, that was clearing the law. The next one is about hazing and bullying. We've always had a hazing and bullying policy. When our auditors were visiting us this year, they wanted a key line that wasn't in our policy thus far, and it's that discipline procedures will not infringe on any student's right under the First Amendment to the Constitution of the United States. That's never been a challenge for us, but the auditors, that was a look for them, and so we've added that to that policy. The next regulation is similar in that regard as well. It's just talking about infringing on students' rights. So the auditors would like to see that both in our regulation and in our policy.
May I ask why they want to see that specific verbiage in their policy?
So we did talk about that with them at length. We sought out our own counsel for OSBA because we felt quite confident that our current policy met the law and was in keeping with the law, and we felt like we were doing everything right. But they were quite clear in their conviction from the auditor of the state that it would not be a clean audit without that additional notion in our policy.
So I just want to make sure that I'm clear on this. So the auditor from the state treasurer's office as telling us what the verbiage needs to be in our bullying policy that has no direct relation to the financial health of our district. I just want to make sure I'm clear on this.
The auditors, and we did have state auditors this year, but the auditors have greatly increased their scope of work to include looking at policy and...
I think that's complete BS. I think that's overstepping their role as a financial auditor.
I think they're thinking if something isn't covered, then they become financially liable if a parent were to say, well, it's not in your policy because X, Y, or Z.
But we're
Suddenly
talking
they're
about a
financially
First
liable.
Amendment, we're talking about protecting their First Amendment rights. We're not talking about the financial liability of a student in the district. It is two completely separate things.
I think that's why the finances are being looked at, because they want to make sure that
Well, they look
funds
at
are
them
covered.
anyway because we're a governmental institution.
Right.
I just think this is complete overstepping of the state auditor's office into a realm of which they should not play in.
And I can understand your point of view, but when you think about it, the more mandates that keep getting put on school districts, somebody has to enforce that. Who's going to enforce them? The only one that's out there that can enforce them is the auditor's office. So the mandates hurt us because it limits what we can do to help kids, and it hurts auditor's office because they have to make sure we're doing all those.
Right, but so while they increase their scope to include things in a realm of which they should not participate in, I mean, they could let other things slip through the back, right? So because they're worried about whether or not that specific verbiage, I mean, the state auditor would have to specifically dig in a very specific section away from the financial aspects of our district in order to find that. Like, they have to go out of their way to look for that.
It's part of they had a 10-point system, and this was the look for this policy. It was on their list of what, and we spent, 2 months, Julie and our OSBA representative going back and forth about our current policy and feeling good in our words, and we shared some other language. We shared our language with them. We told them why we thought it met what it needed to meet. It did not fit the bill for what they were looking for.
They actually had comments on 3 of our policies.
Right, and my feelings on all 3 policy comments are the same, is that the financial auditors should stick to what they need to do and then leave policy oversight to who does policy oversight. You shouldn't have the financial auditor dictating policy oversight, I'm sorry. That's how I feel about it.
And I think all the auditors would agree with you. I don't think the auditor's office wants to take on this. It's just like I said, the more mandates get put on school districts, the more it makes it, somebody has to watch them if you make that law.
I mean, so I'm in favor of the verbiage changes. I'm just voicing my frustration.
Yeah, I understand.
Right.
But you don't mind. Of course, we're not going to infringe on the students' rights.
No, we're not going to infringe on their rights.
We did argue the same points, I believe.
Yeah, we're just 2 months further down the road. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So those 2 policies. The next one is on graduation requirements, as both Mrs. Akers and Mrs. Ronan had spoke about earlier. We are keeping our graduation requirements in line with that of the state as 20 credits. Currently, it's 21, and this would be 20 credits.
The current numbers as listed are 22, but it says 21?
Maybe that's an elected choice or something, but the current is 21. So it could have been either a mistype or just the electives overlap the academic.
I was just worried it wasn't supposed to suddenly be 21.
No, it is.
I saw 2 numbers removed and I got concerned.
So that will go into place this month. This policy shows itself a lot. We've seen this policy come up, and this one also, there used to be a graduation requirement opt-out, and they've removed that language this time. As you know, as they spoke of, we'll have a lot more seals to come. And so I would imagine this policy will show itself again as they add more verbiage to it. So 20 credits will be what Norwood will move forward with. The next policy is the parent's right to know, and that is a policy that we've seen a lot. The auditors requested that we add a charge for paper copies that is 1 cent per page. If someone requests information from us. Documents can be requested in electronic format other than email and will be subject to the actual costs charged. That also came out of the auditors, so that is one thing that they said all policies should have a charge listed. Fair enough. Public gifts to the district is no change in our current content policy, but allows for a cross-reference link. And then getting back to the meat of our work, Title I, each year we re-adopt the Title I policies, both discussing our Title I programs and that we encourage parent and family involvement. So you'll see this coming up every year. It's just the way we do business so that it brings it to the forefront. There's no change in the policy this particular time. There might be in the future, but none at this time, but it allows, it is part of what we're supposed to do as part of our federal requirements to bring that forward each year. So I know I spoke quickly, but I was trying to push us along a little bit. And we have 2 months to discuss whatever you need to know about it.
So just so that everybody is aware, because we do a multiple reading and we do not fall under any emergency clause whatsoever to immediately enact policies. So we're going to have the first reading in February for these policies, and then they're open for public comment. So if anybody, they'll be able to go to our website, view the policies, reach out to us, provide any feedback that they want to provide. Then we can discuss these policies at our next committee meeting. We can make changes if we want to. We can pull them off if we want to, or they can remain as is. We can have the second reading in March and then adopt them at that meeting. So that's how the process works.
I'd like to request that one of our Facebook posts links our policy page to our, since people are having a little bit of difficulty currently finding those items until we overhaul that, it would be a great idea to post them soon so that way folks can read them.
Yeah, I know previously we had a separate section. So if you go to our webpage and you go to the board section, there's policies, and then there's another section right underneath it for policies under consideration.
Yeah.
And that those would be the home. But I think linking that to a Facebook post,
yeah,
I think it's a great idea. So.
And as always, if you have questions, you can always call over at the district office, and I can field them, and Julie can field the financial ones, or we can go back.
I was going to say, add in the post, if you have questions or comments, please message you guys, and then put the email and the phone number appropriate to whoever that might.
What we don't want is people commenting on the policies in the actual post.
And we can turn off commenting on certain posts. That way we can, we can share it and say, if you have any comments or questions, please field them to this office.
Yeah, I think public comment, keeping that just outside of that realm, because you have the potential of just having people just go on, and say stuff that's just not productive.
And that concludes policy.
All right, we're going to move on to building and ground, section 7. Amber.
All right. So one of the things that we have had come up again and again, questions from the community especially, is in regards to the Allison playset. We have a perfectly great playset that is unfortunately not really able to be used because of insurance liabilities and access to the property and things like that. What I would love to do is find anybody in the community willing to take on a property like that, to remove it, dismantle it, and we'll donate it to you. The downside is a lot of insurance companies will not insure a playset that has been dismantled and then rebuilt. So I will put it out to anybody. If you're interested, reach out to your insurance company if you might be in need of a new playset, and find out if you have it reconstructed by a professional, what that would do. Would your insurance then cover it? And then contact us if you are interested in it, or if you know of an organization, an orphanage, a church, a community park, anywhere that you think really could benefit from this playset. That would be fantastic. We'd love to hear from you because we won't want it to go to waste. I know that Brandon spoke with Donna Lake about potentially being able to use the slide off of it to help repair a current slide that they had damaged recently. So we're looking into that possibility as well, but there's a whole rock wall and all kinds of climbing things for these kids to use, and I hate to see it go to waste. So if you're interested, please reach out to me, let me know, and I'll make sure we move that information along.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest issue has always been, you know, getting it insured once it's been put back together.
Right.
And that's what scares people.
Yeah, we're not just ignoring people's requests or thinking that, you know, well, if there's a perfectly good playground, why can't we use it? Well, it's insurance liability, unfortunately, but we want to try to figure out ways that we can mitigate that or work with someone and their insurance company to make sure that it's built properly so that it can be reinsured once it's moved to its new home. Otherwise, unfortunately, it does have to be dismantled, and then nobody can enjoy it, and that's the last thing we want. It's perfectly good. So the other item is 7.02, and I believe we do have a guest involved for that one. We're discussing location for Avenue Success Summer location and use of potentially the stadium. So if you'd like to come up, Laura, and fill us in on that.
All right. So thank you for adding me to the agenda. Yesterday, if I'd had more time, I had a big old PowerPoint, but sorry.
Come on, Alex.
To disappoint. I think, okay, so I'm technically impaired, so maybe not that.
Just that easy.
Got it. Okay. And I also have, so I think it's really interesting. You know, I think maybe some of you know that we actually got to go to, Tyler contacted me and we got to go to the filming at the U.S. Playing Card. So I was so excited to be able to thank the gentlemen because they had okayed it, and now I'm on friends with Aaron Steele on Facebook, and so hopefully we'll get some more connections for our kids. But our kids had a great time, so it's nice to say thank you to them. Alex, I will talk with Julie, but several years ago, we had a girls' middle school softball team in hopes of getting to where you're going, which is fantastic, so I'm very excited about it. I do have equipment, so I'll have a conversation with Julie because we do share equipment. I share my music equipment with the music department, so let's have a conversation, and I can drag you down to our site, and you can look at what you can use. And so, Julie, we can have that conversation about sharing that, so that's really nice. Yeah, I know. It's a good thing I didn't have PowerPoint. But I have this. Sally, you have everything except what the camp is when we met the other day. So that's for our board members. And Glenna, on the marketing end, she knows how I've worked so hard, 6 years marketing this program, and you know what it takes to get. You know, we finally got over 1,000 likes on Facebook. So, but that's a piece of it, and so marketing is really crucial to what Avenues for Success does in the district. So on to camp, if you go on our website, how many of you have liked our Facebook page? Okay, good. So if you haven't liked our Facebook page, I'm not looking at the ones that didn't raise their hands. If you haven't liked our Facebook page, go ahead and like it if you're on Facebook. And then how many of you have looked at our website? Okay, yeah, you know, so I think we have a pretty decent website. We're always trying to. Last year, I kind of took a sabbatical from both of them for a little bit. But if you go to our website, our stories, and you have that in your folder, it talks about, these are testimonies from our families about our summer blast camp. And if you look on the front of our folder, you know, our motto is, it's all about the experience. And so we really feel, and my staff really feels, that Shea Stadium is an absolute perfect place for a summer camp, because it just lends to what summer's about. Being outside, but yet we're still covered. We have a safe space. Alex we had a conversation, so when a storm arises, our kids get to go down into the belly of the giant, and they are there, they're safe, they get to watch a movie. So we have it all worked out that it's a very good space. My favorite quote is the last one. My daughter Bella had so many good experiences. I'm grateful for the swim lesson. She grew leaps and bounds in the water this summer. The entire experience far exceeded my expectations. Rarely do you find people who truly care about the kids. To be able to spend time to send your child to a daycare summer camp Where a child felt valued is priceless. Avenues for success literally makes me never want to leave this school district. That was one of that's like my all-time favorite from a parent. So, and then if you go on up on the website, in our gallery, we had some pictures from our summer blast camp. And I'll just go through them quickly. We have great access to the pool. We don't have to walk across town. From any other place in town, we'll be crossing major roads to get to the pool. We have swim lessons. Our kids take swim lessons once a week, so they get swim lessons, and in the afternoon they get to swim. And also in your packets there is our schedule from last year. We hadn't developed it yet this year. You can see the aquarium. We have really, great programs come in. This year I talked to Chris about adding the 3 weeks that we have camp here, the academic camp. We would send all our kids to the academic camp for that three hours, and then they would go back to our space for the rest of the afternoon. It just lends to, we're right there talking about equipment. We have great equipment that we can access. They're outside, they're getting fresh air. There is a post on our Facebook page, a parent posted about how grateful she was that her kids actually got to be outside all summer and be in the fresh air. And we have spent, over the last 2 years, approximately $10,000 on equipment that is specifically used for camp space at Shea. Tables, chairs, we have children's tables, children's chairs. We have the working tables, working chairs for activities. We have a basketball hoop that we use, and it goes on and on. So you can kind of see, you can look at that and see. So the space lends itself well. We had an issue last year, and I think that that's why I'm here this year. At the end of the year, we used the back place where the boosters have some things, and they had some concerns, and so I got a text, and I immediately sent my staff down, and there was some tape residue, and there was some milk in the bottom of a cooler, which my staff immediately went down. They cleaned it up, they fixed it, booby gone, got everything done. I checked with the booster, my booster contact, and several times and asked, was everything okay? Did we take care of it? Did we take care of it? And she finally said, oh yes, that's why I didn't respond to you. It was all taken care of, it was good. So then we further had a conversation, and I asked her, I said, well, my thought is, why don't we have a walkthrough, like when we close up, and let's have a walkthrough together. And she said, that sounds great. And so that was where we left that conversation, that we would have a walkthrough, so it met everybody's expectation. And in saying that, I had also said to my staff, we had our big family party that last day. So we were there. My staff was literally there from 7 in the morning until 11:30 at night. And I said, we'll do our party on another day so that we can make sure that everything is closed. I think if you speak to our facilities directors, our IT directors, I am very particular about how we share things and how well we share things. And if something doesn't go well, I will fix it immediately. And I think you all know my work ethic and know that I'm going to take care of it. I believe that, we should share things and we should be good stewards of the space that we share. So I had left at the end of the year, summer camp. I thought we had a plan. And I know when that was brought up, I was trying to be really ahead of things and putting in all my facility requests for the year in September. And I know that was a difficult time in September. I believe that the meeting that it came to, I think, was when Kathy was sick, had gone to the hospital. So in saying that, does anybody have any questions about it? It just lends itself to be the perfect spot for kids to have one of those summers that you have as a kid. So you're not in a school building all summer after you've been in a school building all year, but you have this great experience. There's educational things that are going on. You can see from our schedule from last year, and yet there's outdoor playtime that is just what we need. When we're inside, we need that vitamin D. We definitely need the sun to get some vitamin D to keep our bones healthy.
So, does anybody have any questions about it, or about the use of the space, or what happened?
Can your future end of year parties be held at a completely separate offsite?
It wasn't.
Place?
It actually wasn't the party because so the last day our families came in and we ate and then they all went over to the pool. So the party didn't have anything to do with us missing the tape residue and some milk in the cooler. The party didn't have anything to do with that at all. We had actually, on the very last day, a power washer had been brought in. We had power washed the complete concourse. We had wiped everything down. We had left all that, and that was something that was missed. So I said this year, we won't use tape. I plan on, and I also bought a lot of cabinets last year so that our things are stored on the outside. They're locked, so we didn't have to store as much behind that space. Because she said she didn't want a lot of things behind there, so I bought storage cabinets so that we could just, work it out so the space was good, so we could store all our stuff there. And, to have to use as little of the space that is where the boosters prepare the food for the year. And I did read in our facilities agreement, I did look for it too, this past week. I was looking for it. And it said, we really want our public to enjoy our facilities and use our facilities, and that's part of that statement in the facilities. And this facility really lends itself to our families. We have about 60 kids that come to our summer camp, and so it is a good use of our taxpayers' money, so it's not sitting empty all summer, and that our families are getting access to that space and getting to use that space. And also our kids are getting used to that space so that when they start going there for football games and, all kinds of other activities, they're used to being there. It's kind of, oh yeah, we had summer camp here. And so yeah, are there any questions about it?
With a space that large, why was there any need to even be in the space where the boosters keep their items?
Well, we use the coolers because we have partnership with UMC, who provides our food, our lunches every day, and we have to cool some food. So our milk has to be in a cooler. We keep our safe back there because we bring in money for fees, so we had to have somewhere that could be safe for our safe. So it's locked up. So the space shouldn't be being used a lot. I know our staff went back there for breaks. Just because there's not a lot of place to go and take a break if you've got your 15-minute break, or, they want to eat their lunch, so they went back there. There's things that, I have thought about that we could possibly look into. I could rent a cooler that we keep on the outside of that space. The only thing is the water access, is to have, go back there and have the sink, for water access. We had never had any problems in the past, and I was very surprised, because I thought everything had been cleared up and taken care of. And as I said, I'm always willing. I will fix what isn't right and hopefully leave it in better shape than what we found it. And I mean, that's what I always talk to our staff too. I think talk to the principals of the school. We're good stewards of our space. We work hard at that.
So I think this is a great program, and I think this is a tremendous asset to the district. And so I have talked to the boosters people, and then I've also talked to a number of parents who participate in this program. And the one common theme that has been mentioned to me about this program from the parent side, the boosters, complaining about the tape, that issue was addressed, that's fine. But the common theme that was always brought to me when I was talking to some of the parents whose children participate in this program is they all love the program. So, but for them, it didn't really matter if it was at Shea or if it was at somewhere else. And I truly think, Shea Stadium, that concourse was not designed for that purpose.
Yeah,
to host this camp.
Yeah.
That space was not designed for that purpose. And I agree with you in that we should be good stewards of our facilities for the needs of the community. And I think there are better spaces within our buildings that we encompass that would be better fits for this program. And I would like to see the program grow, and I'd like to see the program continue, and I'd like to see to be able to make sure that the kids have the opportunities to play outside and have access to pools and all those great experience things. But I'm just not sold that Shea Stadium, using that concourse as the home, is the right place for that. Now, if 3 other of my colleagues disagree with me, then it can stay at Shea Stadium, and I'm fine with it. But my personal opinion on this, and I've not wavered from the moment this was brought to my attention, and I really started talking to people about this, I think there's just a better home for this program, and I think this is a great program. And I think the job that you're doing with this is fantastic, and I'm glad that you're a part of our district.
So I think what I would like to say is, I would love for you all to visit it. To come and see. I know it wasn't built for that, but so many times, things were never intended, but they become a good space. And it's surprising because it's shaded, it's cool under there, we get this great breeze all day. I was really pleasantly surprised how well it lent itself to that. That was not our original intention. Our original intention was to have part of it in the rec center. And I was not told how deplorable the rec center was. And we went in to look at the space to get things that we needed, and the ceiling was leaking, everything was like, it was not good. So we had already been approved to use the facility as well as the rec center. So we went over there, and then it really just turned out to be even a better space. I'm surprised because I've never had a family say anything to us about, where we have it, that they don't like it. They all seem to like that because of the access. Their kids get swimming lessons, they get to play outside. So I have not heard that, and we could move forward. We could do a survey, with our families to see, those that have used the space and have not used the space, so that we could really see what their preferences are for their child, for the camp. My concern is if we don't move forward, that we're going to lose a lot of people, because this is the time of year that you enroll your student in a camp. And I've also, my staff has said to me they don't want to be in a school building all summer. So that's what my staff has said. I've had staff say to me, I probably won't work it if I have to be in a school building all summer. My staff love that space to work with the kids. So, for you to say that is the first that I've heard of that from a parent,
Nobody said that they hated the space.
No. But I hadn't heard anything.
They just didn't care if it was at Shea or if it was at, another building. As long as their kids had the experience, that's what they cared about.
And I think that the experience is better lent itself there just because of the access to all those great summer opportunities, that whole area lends. So, we could do, if you would like for us to do a survey of all our families that were in the camp to see their opinions, we could do that or not, or.
Well, it's going on the agenda for next week for us to vote whether or not we want to use this space for this purpose. So, we can keep it on the agenda, and we can, see how, everybody feels. I'm going to tell you right now, my preference is to find this particular program a new home.
But where do you suggest with access to
My
the pool?
question.
Yeah. Because the kids take advantage of these, so unless they're spending time in the middle school and then going in the high school pool, that's the only equivalent in terms of distance. But then again, they're inside all day, and you're losing that. They could go out to the football field, but summer programs, kids are practicing out there, so they can't use that area. Construction's happening, for getting our stuff set for the 6th grade. So we can't, use, other buildings that are currently under construction. So we're really limited right now on a flex space, and I think maybe if this year we could use it because we kind of need to maybe take advantage of the fact that we don't have a lot of options this particular year.
I think you could use the middle school and then work out an agreement with the YMCA across the street to use their pool.
Well, and I'd like to chime in too, because I I agree with everything Brandon has said, and I too appreciate the program and your involvement with it and the things that I think it's a wonderful program and a resource for our families. But I'm probably the board member that's closest to the boosters. I'm not officially a booster, but I'm a parent of athletes, and I volunteer many, many, many hours with them. And, you know, I saw firsthand, you know, when and I'm not just talking about the end of the year thing. I'm talking about when I would just be down there helping clean out bays for Pee Wee football or whatever it was that we were doing. You know, I kind of saw what they had to deal with and what they had to work around. And even though we're not hosting Friday night football games and soccer games and all that, the boosters are still using that space during the summer months. And again, you know, we have football practices going on the fields, and I don't even know what all, but you know, it is still an athletic facility, and it's still being used for athletic purposes. So, you know, like I said, I just kind of agree with everything Brandon said. I think it's a wonderful program, but what I saw firsthand, you know, I just kind of thought there has to be a better way. I mean, I understand the appeal of Waterworks, and something I even threw out in conversation with a few people today was, you know, what about the building right next door to Waterworks? You know, there's a room in there. I've been to graduation parties.
That's
you know,
the rec center.
That's the one that you said.
Yeah. Oh, that's the rec center. Okay.
But
I thought she was talking about.
It would really depend on the Y's willingness. So it's not that we can't reach out to the YMCA, but I mean, it's definitely an option. But I'm saying it also could be a really good opportunity if this was feedback that we've gotten from 1 year's experience to say, okay, we need to make it like a probationary period, so to speak. Every week needs to be spotless, not just end of year, every week. If, you know, the boosters want to appoint somebody that says, I'm going to check off this list every single week and it needs to be at standard, or we're going to cut this location. It not only it instills a respect from our students to make sure they are maintaining that space. The same thing you were talking about is that you want to leave it better than you found it. Our boosters were not finding it better than it was left. So obviously there's a disconnect. So either your workers were saying, oh yeah, it's clean, and it's being taken at face value, and then our boosters show up and it's not at face value. That's, you know, that's one option. It can be a compromise to say this year we need to look at it very strictly, make sure that it's being met, that everything is being cleaned up. It's wonderful that you guys power wash the facility. That's a great thing for us. It's a great location. But we also don't know if the Y is willing to step in and say, we're going to offer up this facility.
I think with the YMCA, they have their summer camp that is...
They have their own camp.
Yeah, they have their own camp. So, and then they have the membership people that don't even like their own camp students being in the pool. And so yeah, it would be very difficult. And then the cost, you know, would probably be much higher than what, you know, we are paying the rec. For, you know, to use the pool, because what we've done to cut down the cost was we just purchased pool passes for our students so that they had access to the pool, and then that also gave them access to the pool for their parents. That kind of was a relief for their parents so that their child had a pool pass for the summer for days besides just when they were with us in camp. So we cut our costs that way. We do pay for swimming lessons, but I'm a very firm believer that I didn't want a child in a pool that didn't have swimming lessons, so we do pay for that, which we probably would not have that access because we have that access to the for swimming lessons in the mornings once a week. You know, the pool's all ours. They bring in lifeguards. They teach our kids how to swim. And they put them in levels, and then the kids are in those levels.
What's your enrollment?
And pardon?
What's your enrollment?
We have, last year we started off with like 70, and then it was about 60. So we had about 60 kids. You know, kids, you know, they go on vacations or, you know, things change. But we have an average of 60 families that use the services in the summer. We like to build it, you know, increase that. But 60 is nice. You know, kids get good, you know, get. And we only used one bay, which they allowed us. So we don't do anything with any of the other bays. We shared our tables and our chairs with the 4th of July committee, so they didn't have to bring in all their tables and chairs. We always told the boosters if they had an event, if there was a little Indians thing or anything, they needed our tables and chairs out, we could leave them out so folks could use them for that, you know, those events as well. So again, sharing those. And then if we had to remove anything, we always removed it if they had something coming up.
Well, and let me mention too, I know you said like a possibility for you would be like renting a cooler, but let me help you understand a little bit about that. So like those Coke coolers that are back there, like Coke gives them to us to use.
Yeah.
And there's very strict rules about what can be in those coolers. And if Coke were to come in and see cartons of milk or lunches from the staff, I mean, that's a big problem for the boosters.
And we were never informed of that. I mean, they gave us, there was a couple coolers that we could use, and those were the ones we used. I think they were the ones that were closer up front, the ones that they said we could use, we used. And because that, I had never heard that. But that's why I said, well, you know, I thought possibly maybe we just bring in our own coolers. And the only thing that we have to go back there whatsoever for would be to, you know, keep our safe back there. And then water.
Well, just in case they didn't explain that to you, I wanted you to know that's a thing, you know, that's a real thing.
I had no idea of that. Yeah, I didn't know about that. But, you know, and I have absolutely no problem. I mean, because, you know, our staff has to do certain tasks. Everything has to be done at the end of the day, ready for the next day. So I have no problems with, you know, check it off. And again, I invite anybody to come at any given time. I think you all know with anything, if we, you know, stop something because of, you know, one incident, you know, lots of things wouldn't happen. You know, we just have to continue to make it better, to, you know, raise our standards and make it workable and doable for everybody. So, yeah. So thank you. I'm sorry that I added more to your night.
No, you're fine. So what do we want to do with this? Do we want to keep it on the agenda and vote on it? Or do we want to pull it off and see if we can find a workaround for when we can bring it back on the agenda?
Well, I think like she was saying, though, it kind of needs to be decided soon because parents are looking now for summer plans for their kids.
So like
if it's getting pushed back.
So if we vote no on this right now as it stands, then I mean, you have to go back and find a home.
I have to make a decision whether or not we would have camp or not based on, like, if my staff doesn't want to work it, you know, I mean, that's kind of where we'd be at, like, will we hold it? You know, will we hold camp or will we not hold camp? I mean, there would have to be immediate decisions made, you know, based on that. I mean, because, you know, what our families want, what my staff wants. I mean, there would be a lot of things that would have to, you know, that's why I would really prefer to just resolve it and invite you all to come out, you know, and check us out during the summer. It's a fun place to be. Because I really don't see a better space, you know, for that. I can't afford to bus the kids to the pool, you know, for that. I mean, that costs a lot of money. I've thought about that. Kids used to walk, but, you know, on any given day, you know, I smell pot in pretty much every car that goes by, and it scares me about, you know, impaired drivers. And I mean, I think about that all the time, and crossing 60 kids, you know, across Montgomery, or a busy street, any way you hit it. I mean, Sharpsburg's out, and, you know, any way you hit it, you've got to move 60 kids walking in the heat. So it's kind of like a safe spot because, and it's also with that gate, it's perfect. You know, the gate is locked, our kids are secure in there, nobody can get in, you know, it doesn't have access that isn't allowed to come in, so it really lends itself to safety as well for our kids and less movement, you know, moving them from here to here to there, you know, via walking, via transportation. It lends itself that way to be, you know, to be a good space. And I
used Williams, you just go down Forest.
You still, well, it depends on what school you're at. You'd still have to cross, because you can't use Sharpsburg. You'd still have to cross a major, you'd have to cross Smith and Edwards to get
right,
to Forest.
but that would be the only major street you would have to cross.
Yeah, you're still crossing the major street with 60 kids, you know, coming and go. I mean, I'm just saying that there's a lot of factors that it lends itself to be a safe space, an access to a lot of areas. And, you know, that's how, you know, we see it and view it as a good space to be in. So.
It seems like it might be easier to find a workaround of ensuring that they keep it clean than a workaround of having it somewhere else and having access
access to a pool.
Alex, can I ask you, did you have any issues with the facility, with them messing up the field, with any issues specifically from the, like?
Yeah, they don't go to the field.
No, I'm just checking in, I wanna make sure.
The only thing that,
if we're worried about
we did,
issues.
as far as the athletics department was concerned, is if we had like a camp there, sometimes those gates would have to be unlocked with those kids there, so that was the only issue that I saw.
Yeah, and I think a couple
from our
times, I think there was something that they.
If we had like a scrimmage or something like that.
They came in and out and they let, I think we worked around a couple different activities that happened. I think Little Indians had an activity. We worked around everything that, and most of the activities always happened after our kids were gone as well, during that time.
Did the kids use the locker rooms, like for restrooms and stuff, was that left open to
No,
them?
there's restrooms upstairs.
I'm just making sure. So there was never an issue with messing up locker rooms or?
No, the only time we went downstairs was inclement weather. Yeah, and so the kids went down there. I had okayed that with Alex, and but no, we don't go down there except for that. And then they typically watch television.
So it sounds like we can keep this on the agenda and we can just vote on it. I think there's a general consensus to want to try and find a workaround. My position hasn't changed. I'm still think that there's a better home for this and there's a better solution for this. But if three of us decide that we want to try this for another year to find a workaround and make it work, I'm perfectly okay with that. I'm willing to go.
How many times have you done the summer camp?
This third year
At Shea? They were all at Shea?
Yeah, it's always been at Shea. Maybe
So,
this
I
would
mean,
be our third, yeah.
Like,
and this is the first time
this is the first time there's been a problem and it's been addressed. And truthfully, I think the concern is that they're going to go back and mess it up again. Well, that's going to happen no matter where they are. So why would we be okay with them going to Williams and messing it up? Like, we don't really think they're going to go and mess it up, right? That's why. Because we think, I feel like everybody's learned their lesson. Everybody's very willing to, be transparent in that and have, boosters come in and check it out. Like,
I'm typically there every day. My time lends myself to actually go to camp more than like all the programs in the district every day because I'm taking care of all the administrative stuff every day. I extend my contract in the summer. I'm only contracted for 183 days. So I did this, I extended my contract to do summer things and summer programming. And we have other summer programming that we do as well, not just this. So I am able to go every day. And so, I will definitely ensure, because any of you are welcome to come to my house anytime and see how I keep my house. So if all you have to do is walk through once. But I have a high expectation of quality. And I was very disappointed that happened. Just very disappointed because that clearly is not what I like to happen. And I would love for you all to come to the camp, and see how it lends itself, how that space lends itself as well. So.
Okay. Awesome. So we'll keep it on the agenda.
Okay, thank you. Next time I'll come with the 2-hour PowerPoint.
All right, so let's move on to item number 8, Finance Committee. Sally.
Julie.
Take it away.
Couldn't explain that much better than I ever could.
Number 1, as I said in my CFO report attached to the agenda, revenues for the general fund were very short for January. However, those tax revenues have already been received in February, so we just had a timing issue there. Expenditures for the year are still a little lower than expected in the November forecast. In the next month or so, I'll be wrapping up budgets and we'll be able to estimate savings for the year, but I don't expect them to be material. Our general fund January month-end cash balance was $8,913,000, which is low compared to last year. At the same time frame, again, due to tax revenues being slow. The financial reports are attached for your review, as well as the construction change order spreadsheet and the enrollment report from January. 8.02, we have an electric supply contract. We have a rate of 4.36 cents per kilowatt hour coming off of a contract at 5.1 cents per hour. So we'll see some savings there. I'm excited about this contract. It's a good rate. When you approve this contract next week, it will be backdated to tomorrow's date in order for me to take advantage of that pricing. So I'm going to sign it, remit it back to the vendor tomorrow. 8.03, the sub-teacher service agreement to provide our sub-teachers as we have in the past. 8.04, developmental disability service agreement for next school year already. 8.05, capital assets inventory disposals. Over the next few years, we'll continue to clean up old inventory in our capital assets. And finally, 8.06, a nice donation from the Emerson Charitable Trust for the high school. And that's all I have for finance.
Perfect. I just have one question, and this relates back to your CFO report.
Mm-hmm.
So the very last page is the construction budget worksheet.
Yes.
And so I was looking at your update for that, and I was looking at the sheet, and I'm a little confused as to why the modulars for Sharpsburg was listed as an additional item and not in the original scope of the work. Because, I mean, we knew we had to have modulars for Sharpsburg. So why weren't they included in our original? Because it looks like we're $500,000 over budget for that, when we knew we had to have modulars for that project.
Did we change the number of modulars needed?
No.
But if you remember, when we were going through that whole process, we did a separate bid on that. Remember, we accepted separate bids?
No, I understand we did separate bids for it, and we had to do that specifically for the reason of getting the modulars under contract.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, we were going to lose them.
Right.
But that still doesn't mean that they're an additional item to the project.
Well, and this is my document. I'm just trying to come up with a budget number of how much do we need to track still to bring in. So what I'm saying is that the original budget for Sharpsburg did not include modulars. Because if you remember way back when we started this process, we were going to do all the project with children in the building. All the renovation was going to be done with children in the building. And so we learned with the middle school that was not a good idea. So Sharpsburg was our first attempt to get the children out of the building, and we chose to use the modulars. So that's why they're outside of the project, because it was never anticipated to need modulars years ago when we first started the project.
Okay. All right. That makes sense.
Yeah. And so, but this document is good to bring up because, it highlights the fact that funding for this project came in it was going to be in 2 installments.
Right.
And so at this point in time, we need less money than we did at the beginning of the project.
Right, by about $1 million.
Right.
Right.
But we still need to make sure that what we're adding, because we have added to the project as we go along, that they're important adds, because of course, just like any other project, you're going to run out of money if you keep adding. So what we're doing is trying to control the cost of the project. And we'll know more after our bid opening.
Right. So just as everybody looks at this document, when we originally did this back in 2016, before any of us were on this body, the original ask for the money was intentionally done about $10 million short of what we actually needed. And this was done on purpose. And so as we go through these different buildings, like for the middle school, the project was initially bid for, our initial estimate was almost $12 million, or $11.9 million. Mm-hmm. And then we came into that project under that number. And that's even after we had that whole asbestos debacle, mm-hmm. where we ended up spending $1.5 million more than what we thought we were going to spend. Mm-hmm. Right? So if we didn't have to do that asbestos debacle, then we would be sitting in a much better space with that $10 million. Mm-hmm. So as we go through the other buildings, when something comes up, because you never know what you're going to get into until you open the walls, anything that comes up is going to put in jeopardy what we do at the high school. because right now the high school is going to be the building that's going to suffer from any shortfall. Otherwise, we have to go back to the taxpayers again to make sure that any updates for the high school get taken into consideration. And really, I really don't want to do that.
Right, and we were limited by our debt limits. As a school district, you're only allowed to have so much debt, and that's what stopped us from trying to get all of the bonds to fund the whole entire project. And I know that was a big disappointment at the time when they started this project. So there are other things that we can do without going back to our taxpayers.
Yeah, I really want to refrain from doing that.
Yes, I agree.
Okay. But anyways, that was my only comment about your reports. Anybody else have anything else? All right. I think we're adjourned.
We have a motion.
Oh, motion to adjourn?
I'll second. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Atwood?
Yes.
Mrs. Cole?
Yes.
Mrs. Ballard?
Yes.
Mrs. Rayburn?
Yes.
Mrs. Rarica?
Yes.
And we're out.